Nothing. Hey, is this right? This is correct.
Esther Hall, Commerce City Historical.
June Younger, Commerce City Historical Society.
Deborah Bullock, Commerce City Historical Society.
Charlie Elmquist, Rocky Mountain Realty.
Jeanette Lewis.
Danny Thomas.
Betty Thomas.
Pam Spratler.
Gloria Heisidler, CDOT.
Joy Bishop, Historical Society.
Gene Leffel, Commerce City Historical Society, Commerce City Citizens for Recycling, and founder of the Cars Club.
Roger Tinklenberg, Finance.
Darren Sterling, Public Works.
Michelle Hill, Economic Development.
Matt Wiederspawn, Public Works.
Ms. Rain Cordero, Government Affairs.
Seal Martin, the American Cancer Society.
Caitlin Bratting, American Cancer Society. Melanie Bro, happy to be the chair for the first American Cancer Society of Commerce City.
Derek Ross, South Adams Fire.
Kevin Phillips, South Adams Fire.
Larry Wood, Police Department.
Thank you. We'll move to the proclamations and recognitions part of the agenda. Our first proclamation, Proclamation 12-016, 2012 Relay for Life Proclamation. I'll read the proclamation, then ask for a motion to approve the proclamation and invite anyone in the audience that's here for that item to come and say a couple of words. Whereas the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life was created in the mid-1980s by colorectal surgeon Dr. Gordy Klatt, who sought to increase the funds for his local society and demonstrate his support for patients. And whereas Dr. Klatt, an avid marathoner, spent 24 hours circling the Baker Stadium track at the University of Puget Sound, surrounded by nearly 300 friends, family members, and patients who supported him in his 83-mile journey. And whereas Dr. Klatt raised $27,000 that day to fight cancer, and months later created the first community relay event in Tacoma, which resulted in $33,000. And whereas Dr. Klatt's vision became Relay for Life, with over 5,200 events in the United States, and in the past 28 years has raised more than $4.5 million to save lives. And whereas Relay for Life demonstrates how one person can make a big difference. And whereas the City Council of Commerce City will participate as a team in the 2012 Relay for Life event at Prairie View High School, which begins at 3 p.m. on Saturday, July 28th, to help raise awareness of and funding for cancer research. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, on behalf of the City Council, hereby support the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life event and encourage all citizens to participate in the relay and support the City Council team. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation? Councilman McEldowney.
Would move to approve the proclamation for the 2012 Relay for Life.
Thank you. Councilman Benson.
Second the motion.
We have a motion and a second to approve the proclamation. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. If there's anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this particular proclamation? No?
Hello. My name is Melanie Bro, and I'm the first-year chair for the American Cancer Society's Relay for Life, encompassing Commerce City, Henderson, South Adams County. It's hard for me to talk about this because I lost my mother and father, my brother, to cancer. So it's very, very important that I let you know, Dominic, I've called you constantly, Jim, you as well, and said, please stand behind this cause, because we have good news. Every dollar we raise, we put back into research and funding and education and advocacy. And one day, we will beat this disease. So please, tell your constituents to come out and support our event, where we will be held July 28th, 29th, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., because we believe that cancer never sleeps, nor should we. And if you're a cancer survivor, you're a cancer patient, or you're a cancer caregiver, you need to come out and be a part of this event. So please join us in celebrating this, what we want to call more birthdays. We want more birthdays, and we want less purple shirts. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the council? If the council would join myself and the folks here for the proclamation in the front right here, and we'll take a photo.
All right, guys, I need everyone to scooch in. Yeah.
And you like our firefighters, too, because they help us every day, all the time.
Come on in.
Kristen would tell them that our team will be ready.
Oh, yep, she's getting hidden. JD, if you want to, I can't really see you very well. Maybe you should come to the front. All right, guys, on 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's do 2 more. Perfect. Oh, no, I'm just snapping them as we go. All right, guys, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you.
You are getting shirts. They'll be here next week.
One last mic moment. Cancer affects a lot of people, and we don't realize how many people it affects. And there are people who have passed, who are still living with it and will be diagnosed. And this is a huge, huge event for our community. And if anything you can do to get them to come out that night, please spread the word. And thank you for allowing us to be here. It's huge.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move to Proclamation 12-017, National Auto Theft Awareness Month Proclamation. Whereas every 40 seconds a car is stolen in the United States, and whereas 11,114 vehicles were stolen in Colorado in 2010, with losses estimated at nearly $72.3 million, and whereas Coloradans Against Auto Theft, a 43-member coalition comprised of law enforcement agencies, insurance partners, LoJack, and AAA Colorado, was created to promote cumulative statewide efforts in the prevention of auto theft, and whereas the Commerce City Police Department participates in CAAT, whose mission it is to combat auto theft, through ongoing statewide public awareness, education, and citizen engagement, and whereas the number of stolen vehicles has declined by nearly half since its creation, and coalition partners have seen an increase in stolen vehicle recoveries and criminal prosecutions of hardcore and major organized criminal groups, and whereas July is National Auto Theft Awareness Month, and CAAT members are launching the Summer Public Awareness Campaign to provide communities with common sense tips and best practices to prevent auto thefts. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, on behalf of the City Council, hereby declare July as National Auto Theft Awareness Month and encourage residents to visit www.lockdownyourcar.org to learn more information. Motion to approve the proclamation, Councilman Bullock.
Motion to approve the proclamation.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve proclamation 12-017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Is there a audience representative for this proclamation? Commander Woog? You have a comment? Yes. Mr. Bullock, Councilman Bullock?
Yes, as a part of this proclamation, about five people's cars are being stolen in the lot right now, just to prove to you that it can be done. So if you're one of the ones that go out and find that your car isn't there, don't worry about it. You're part of the proclamation. And we, as the City of Commerce City, want to thank you for the revenue.
Thank you, and Councilman Bullock. Commander Woog, if you'd like to join us in the front here for a photo.
All right, guys, I think I need you guys in a little. All right, you know the drill. 3, 2, 1. The 2 more. Perfect. Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda, citizen communication. A comment roster was made available at the back of the council chambers for anyone who would like to speak to the council on a topic. Citizens are reminded that they have 3 minutes to speak on any topic. There was no sign-ups, but I do want to offer if anyone didn't have a chance to sign up that would like to speak. Seeing none, we'll move on. Approval of minutes. There are 2 sets of meeting minutes available for approval tonight. Minutes 12-001 and minutes 12-002. I will accept a motion to approve the June 18th minutes, but they're all present. Thank you. Councilman Bullock?
Move to approve the June 18th minutes.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney? Second. Have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of June 18th, 2012. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next set of minutes, the meeting minutes of June 28th, 2012. Before we have a motion to approve the minutes, I'll need a motion to allow Council members Benson and Carson to abstain from voting on the minutes of June 28th due to their excused absence. Councilman McEldowney?
So moved.
Councilman Bullock?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to allow council members Benson and Cartson to abstain from voting on the minutes of June 28th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. I'll now accept a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 28th, 2012. Councilman Douglas.
Move to approve minutes of June 28, 2012.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney. Have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of June 28th, 2012. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda. Does anyone on council wish to remove an item for further discussion and a separate vote? Seeing none, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Councilman McEldowney.
Move to approve the consent agenda as written.
Councilman Bullock.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Will the city attorney please read the titles?
Yes, title of ordinance Z 901-12 reads as follows: an ordinance rezoning from C3 and R2 to I2 zone district. The properties described in Exhibit A attached hereto made a part hereof located at 7021, 7055, and 7065 East 54th Place, Commerce City, Colorado, and amending the zoning map of the city of Commerce City, Colorado to reflect said rezoning. Title of ordinance 1915 reads, an ordinance to repeal ordinance 1881 and amend the franchise between the City of Commerce City and Public Service Company of Colorado, DBA Excel Energy. Title of resolution 2012-28, resolution approving amendments to 2012 incentives program. Title of resolution 2012-44, resolution calling a special election and declaring intent to participate in the November 6, 2012 general election. And that's the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Gaylor. May I have a roll call vote? Let the record reflect that the consent agenda is passed 8-0 unanimously. Next item on the agenda, resolutions. First on the agenda, we have Resolution 2012-34. Does anyone on council have questions for staff regarding this resolution? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the council on this resolution? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for Resolution 2012-34. Councilman Bullock.
Move to approve Resolution 2012-34.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2012-34. All those in favor say aye.
Title, Mr. Mayor?
Oh, I'm sorry. Title, Mr.
Title
Gaylor.
reads, resolution approving the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Commerce City and the South Adams County Water and Sanitation District regarding manhole work related to the city's 2012 pavement rehabilitation plan.
Thank you. Now, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have Resolution 2012-41. Does council have questions for staff regarding this resolution? Seeing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on this resolution? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to approve Resolution 2012-41. Councilman McEldowney.
Move to approve Resolution 2012-41.
Councilman Teeter.
Second that.
I have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2012-41. Mr. Gaylor, if you'll read the title.
Title reads, resolution approving the settlement IGA with the URA and SACWSD.
Thank you. All those in favor of Resolution 2012-41, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next, we have Resolution 2012-42. Does council have questions for staff regarding this resolution? Councilman Douglas.
No, this is just a motion.
Great. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to the council on this resolution? Seeing none. Councilman Douglas.
I move to make a motion, I move to approve Resolution 2012-42, sorry.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney. Second. Have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2012-42. Will Mr. Gaylor please read the title?
Title reads, Resolution Approving Council Policy Number CP-23 regarding City Council Study Sessions.
Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have ordinances on first reading. I'll ask City Manager McBroom to present on Ordinance 1896.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. Staff has been before council at several prior occasions presenting advantages and disadvantages and details regarding creating a utility for the city's stormwater management system. What we have proposed tonight is an ordinance that would create the utility. However, the ordinance in and of itself does not establish a fee for the utility. A fee resolution would need to be separately adopted by the City Council to actually enact the fee and set the process in motion whereby the city would start collecting the fee. But in order to keep the discussion moving forward, we've presented the ordinance for you tonight on first reading. So to clarify, the ordinance would create the utility, authorize collecting a fee, but the ordinance itself would not set the fee. That would need to be the subject of additional further discussion by the City Council, which we would recommend having over the next couple of months to be considered as part of the 2013 budget. We do have staff here that can answer questions or present any information council might like about the ordinance.
Are there questions for staff regarding Ordinance 1896? Councilman Bullock.
Yes, my concern about this was that the mayor has a really deep opinion on this ordinance. And I was going to ask that it be set aside until he returns, because I really do truly believe I would like to hear from him on before we pass the ordinance, because I know what his feelings are like on this. And so I was going to ask if we could set this aside to the first meeting in August so the mayor would have a chance to comment on it, because passing this now, I would think would do him a great injustice.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. City Manager McBroom.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock, for that comment, which is a very valid point. I should explain the overall schedule that we have in mind for the ordinance and the resolution. And I should state that the schedule was developed such that if City Council would like to enact the fee beginning in January of 2013, this schedule allows Council to do that. So the schedule was to have first reading of the ordinance tonight, have a study session discussion with City Council about the fee on August 13th, and then present both the fee resolution and second reading of the ordinance on August 20th. By following that schedule, August 20th is the latest this year that City Council could approve a fee so that we could start collecting it in 2013. So I believe if we do keep the ordinance on that schedule, it does give the mayor an opportunity to comment on both the fee on August 13th and second reading of the ordinance on August 20th. However, if council would prefer to not move it forward quite so quickly, we can spread that process out. It would just mean that we wouldn't be able to have the fee in place in time for the 2013 calendar year.
Thank you. Councilman Douglas.
Thank you. I agree. I've been sold on this, and I've talked to several residents on this, and we need to make things really clear. I don't think we have. We still have a lot of homework to do. We're still working on our budget, and that's coming up at end of August. And I'd like to have this moved to put it on the study session.
Thank you. Councilman Benson.
I believe this is is this the first time that we have taken a formal vote on this issue? Or we're being asked to take a formal vote?
That's correct.
I certainly agree with Mr. Bullock that the people need to hear what Mayor Ford has to say about this issue, because we've discussed it in executive session, we've discussed it, I think, in study sessions. I think this is the first regular meeting where we've been asked to vote on this issue, and I would like to hear, I'd like for everybody to hear what Sean Ford has to say about it. So I would agree, I would second Mr. Bullock's request, if that's what it takes.
Thank you. Mr. McBroom, would you like to just provide some information on whether or not this fee was being considered for the 2013 budget and how that would affect delaying the vote, how that would affect the 2013 budget?
Certainly. We, on a very preliminary basis, have began to plug in some numbers that might be generated, some revenue that might be generated by a stormwater utility fee, and how that could impact positively the 2013 budget. So again, the schedule we've set up for the ordinance and the fee resolution is to enable City Council to begin collecting that revenue in 2013. If we delay the ordinance and the resolution past August 20th, which we can certainly do, it would just mean that you wouldn't be able to start collecting the fee in 2013. The preferred method for collecting the fee is to have it collected as part of the property tax bill, and the process for us to submit that fee and request Adams County to collect the fee as part of the property tax billing process is what dictates the timing this year. So we can absolutely have further discussion with council, have more opportunity to answer questions. It would just mean that it probably wouldn't be done in time to begin collecting that fee in January of 2013.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
Between the first vote on an ordinance and second reading, how much time has to pass?
2 weeks.
Generally, we wait approximately 4 weeks. I don't know what the minimum required is.
The minimum is 2, isn't it?
I think the minimum is 2.
The charter states that no second reading of an ordinance will be held prior to 7 days between the first reading of the ordinance. However, we also need to take it also states that it can't go any earlier than 7 days after publishing and posting the first reading ordinance.
Okay.
So so with that in mind, because you are now on a first and third regular business meeting, second and fourth study session, this wouldn't go until, unless you fast-tracked it, this would not go until next month for second reading.
Right, and see, what I'm saying is, if we had this on the August 6th meeting, we could vote on it on the August 20th meeting, because there's enough time in between. There's a 7-day posting time and a 7...
First, you have to consider the 10 days, and then we post by a weekly publication. So we post by the Sentinel. That is our main paper for posting legal notices. That's a weekly publication, not a daily. So if you hold it on August 6th, you vote on it for first reading on August 6th, it would go into the Sentinel by noon on Friday of that week. It does not go into hit the paper until the following week on the Tuesday. I don't have a calendar in front of me. Then you count 7 days from there.
Okay, but...
So unless you fast-tracked it, it wouldn't make the August 20th date. That's the bottom line of what she's saying. Now, if you published it in the daily paper, then it would. But it wouldn't make it if you used the Sentinel.
And there is a cost implication, just so that you have all the information. It is like 41 cents a line, or 44 cents a line to run it in the Sentinel. It is like $5 a line to run it in the daily.
Okay. I understand the ramifications, and I understand the timetable, but I also understand the considerations I have for the mayor. And I'm going to uphold that above all because I know what his concerns are about the stormwater. And, I mean, there's going to be great discussion on it because there are some of us that have gone to other sessions where we understand a little bit more the ramifications of where stormwater comes from and everything. But I still want to give our mayor an opportunity to voice his opinion on this ordinance. Now, I'm only one on council, and so if the rest of the council wants to move forward with the ordinance tonight, I'm not going to be the one that holds it up, but this is just what I want to do.
Councilwoman Carson?
Clear up some things for me. I think I have the correct understanding. This is only an ordinance that establishes the utility. This council then would come up with whatever guidelines there were to that, because I know there was lots of discussion. So there is nothing other than the utility being established through this?
No.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
I believe Ms. Carson's correct. The ordinance creates the utility, allows the city to create the fee by resolution, but the ordinance by itself doesn't set the fee. So if the ordinance is adopted on first and second reading, but city council never adopts the fee by resolution,
Okay.
then there would be no fee.
So that's the fee. I will just, I guess, raise what some of my concerns were, that it was different size of property for homeowners. Would this be tied into what was presented to us, or is everything that was presented to us not been established yet?
If I recall, at the last study session where council discussed the concept, most of the discussion was regarding how to set the fee, what fee was appropriate, how would the fee be calculated on different types of land uses. And that's the discussion we would propose to bring back to council on August 13th, have additional discussion with council, see if consensus can be reached about an appropriate fee that could be brought back in a resolution on August 20th. But it doesn't mandate that that has to happen. The ordinance, again, just allows the utility to be created and sets the stage to adopt the fee. But again, if the fee is not adopted, the ordinance would just remain on the books, so to speak. But until the fee is adopted, it wouldn't be charged to property owners.
So is there still room, if this is adopted, to say that all residential property that is not acreage would pay the same fee? Because as of the way it is right now, I think it was somewhere around that half-acre mark or something that the fees started changing.
That is all subject to city council discussion and ultimate approval.
Okay. And I think all my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Councilman Benson?
Well, I'm going to continue to agree with Mr. Bullock. I think that the mayor should be here at any level of discussion about this issue. And I know something that we have talked about in the past, even though we're not required to do it because this is a fee and not a tax, there's a possibility that we could put it on the ballot. We don't have to comply with the Tabor Amendment, but put it on the ballot and let the people vote on it. So if we're imposing some fee on them, we give them the information that they need to make a decision and let the people vote on it. I'm just throwing that out. I think we've discussed that as a possibility, but the time is getting fairly short to get something on the ballot. I know we have an ordinance tonight about participating in the general election on November the 6th, but it's just something to think about, to let the people vote on this rather than the council, even though we're not required to do that. The council can pass this and impose a fee, but I think it would be good to let the people vote on it.
Councilman McEldowney?
I was going to ask some questions to clarify some points that I think Ms. Carson has helped to clarify through her questions. I know there was, Mr. Bullock had a question on the fee, the fact that the establishment of the facility or the utility does not, in and of itself, mandate that we establish a fee. And as Mr. McBroom said, should we take no further action, the utility essentially lies dormant until we were to take action. The discussion that will come in a subsequent study session, and obviously in the first reading of the fee discussion, would be where we would define any structure, any ramp, any formal breakdown of how that fee structure gets structured and applied. So I think those were key points to point out. This allows us to put this in motion, continue the discussion on the fee piece, which was the most substantive piece of the discussion, and should we all deem at that point that it makes sense to go forward, carry it forward. I think the involvement of the mayor and his comments, with all due respect to the position of mayor, he's one man on a 9-member council, and to my understanding, his biggest concerns are around the fees and the equity of those fees and the implication of those fees. And so I guess my thought is to ensure that he's here when that study session occurs and when that first reading of the fee discussion were to occur, should this move forward tonight, would ensure that his comments are part of those discussions, rather than set this aside and then try and find a way to force this in through our agenda process based on the split study versus formal meeting process. I would suggest that we move forward with this tonight.
Councilman Bullock.
I have no further comments. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Councilman Douglas.
Yes, I had a question. What's the cost associated with this right now, what the city covers? I mean, we've been covering it for the last 15 years. Is that right?
I believe the approximate amount of the city's general fund dollars that are dedicated towards maintaining and administering the city's stormwater management program is about $875,000 a year.
So opposing the fee, the way it's structured would just be for storm drainage maintenance. And I know before we talked about it, as also out of that fee, whatever's left over would go to a capital project. Is that right?
That's one option of structuring the fee. The last study session discussion, there were several different alternatives considered. One option would be to simply charge a fee that covers the maintenance we're doing already. Other higher fee amounts would begin to create a source of funds to do larger capital projects for the long-term expansion of the city's stormwater management system. So there are options depending on how much the city wants to cover with the fee. So that would be part of the discussion we would bring back on August 13th.
Yeah, like I said, my take on this, because we need to look at 2013 budget, and have that discussion then. I understand about putting this out there now so it lines up with the county as far as taking the tax portion out or lining it up as far as the fee schedule, if there is a fee. But like I said, I'm still not sold on that. I appreciate you answering those questions, but I think we should hold off on this until we have further discussion.
Councilman McEldowney?
Yeah, just to clarify a point, Mr. Douglas, you keep referring to the 2013 budget and letting that get settled first. The point is that this, if we move forward on this, and the aim is to align this for a January 1 implementation, then that becomes a factor in our budget discussion. If we don't take action on this, then we can guarantee that there's no additional revenue secured for this purpose specifically, and so our budgeting will then have to account for the continued payment for these services and functions out of the general fund. So it reduces our ability to plan that $800 and some thousand, assuming that we were to structure a fee at least sufficient to cover the costs that are already in the general fund. So we wouldn't be able to talk about this impacting a budget until 2014.
Councilman Douglas?
Well, based on the $875,000, in fact, we've been paying for this the last 15 years, I think this could wait till 2014, because we need to go through the budget. There's a lot of things that we need to go through in a detail to see what works right now for a city moving forward in 2013. I have a lot of issues with that. And bringing this up and charging the residents for a fee that I know it's on our time here. I know this has been coming up the last few years, but now it's in front of us, and I think we need to take care of this in a proper manner that not only we understand, but our residents understand as well moving forward, because this is only one in several things that we need to take care of. And if this is already being taken care of right now in our budget, there's other things that we could look at setting forth in front of our citizens. So I'm still not happy with this.
Councilman McEldowney?
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate that, given the number of budget discussions we've had, I think the condition of the budget and the need for looking at how we enable revenue to solve for the things that you yourself talk about needing in terms of a Tower Road or parks or a rec center, those are non-starter discussions until and unless this piece, this one of many puzzle pieces, comes into place. So again, we won't debate that tonight. Obviously, we have additional discussions coming up on the budget, and should this not move forward, we'll certainly be talking a lot about how to solve for those funds when we get into the heart of the budget discussions.
Councilwoman Carson?
It's just my feeling that Mr. McEldowney has touched on the correct things. Since I've been on council, it's been very frustrating that the projects that citizens bring to me that they would like to see done within the city, you can't even start the conversation till you find money to do those projects with. There's been many things that have come in front of council since I have sat here of what is it that you provide citizens, what you don't. Trash being one of the big items. Trash is a very costly item to this city. It was decided by some of this council and the past council that it was an item we wanted to keep on there. But in order to move forward, you have to take a look and say that you have to have a starting point. So if your concern was the amount of money that was attached to each business or each home for this stormwater, I'm not looking at this that's attached to this, because I believe that's too high of a point to start. But I am somebody who believes we need to start. And so by taking a start, because I would like to be able, when I sit on council, to move on to the next conversation of what it is we're going to do and provide for our citizens. When you just say no, you have to have another alternative. If we're not going to do this, then what is it that we're going to do? Because the budget is not going to maintain everything that we have. And so by setting back and taking a look at that, like I said, I'm ready to make this as a starting point that we can start right here. However, big or small will be up to this council of where that starts, but that we do make a start of moving this forward, and that we can move on to the next conversation of what it is that we're going to provide for our citizens in the city. So,
Councilman Douglas?
I just think there's a better way we can do this. I mean, if there's, of course, we're going to need road improvements and looking at rec center up north. There's a lot of things the city needs, but it doesn't need to come through this door right here. We need to educate the citizens, let them know as far as improving and all, we're going to ask for an increase, but do it in a different way. This is not how you get it out there to people. To me, this is a hidden tax, and I don't like that. That's why I think we should structure it a different way. If we're going to need money, and we need to generate revenues. There's all kinds of different ways we can do that, and we shouldn't use this as a leverage to do that. So,
Councilman McEldowney?
Yeah, I have a real hard time with the characterizations being put forth by Mr. Douglas, and I just want to make very clear. I've heard you in study session, and I've heard you tonight suggest that you're not okay with this and that there are other ways. But in all of those discussions, I've yet to hear one alternative that allows for, as Ms. Carson suggested, the quid pro quo. So if not this, to cover those functions out of the general fund, then what? The suggestion that not this way, that this is somehow bad, that it's somehow untoward. This is a fee, this is a mechanism that municipalities across the U.S. are using legitimately to fund necessary services in the community. Our job as a council is to be stewards for this community and ensure that we're able to cover not only the things that we have to fund, but the things that we want to fund. And I think Ms. Carson put it very, very eloquently in that we no longer have the option of setting these aside. I can tell you that in the time I've been on council, I've watched more topics that had the slightest tinge of unpopularity or, they weren't sexy, right? And so people don't want to spend any time on them. We keep pushing them aside. We can't keep pushing these aside. And I don't care if the fee that we implement is $1. We have to start somewhere. And yes, there needs to be an ongoing and very targeted discussion with the community about what it costs to run the community. But we can't just put it off because inaction is no longer an option. And I'm sorry that you're now on council at a time where the clock is essentially, in my mind, running late, and we need to make these decisions. But it's time to do so. And again, tonight, you're not voting to set a fee or what that fee should look like. It's simply enabling this discussion to continue forward so that should we find ourselves in agreement when we get into a fee discussion, we actually have the ability to move this discussion forward this year versus in 2014.
Councilman Douglas.
Well, we're here to discuss, not to point fingers and attack each other. Let's just go ahead and put this put it forward and see who votes on it. But, I've seen in the past, say past council, and I can say that, and I really don't want to say, because I'm going to leave that one alone, but there were some things that were approved that, now it's on our plate, and we had to make sure what was in that budget, because going forward makes sense, because a lot of things that were passed coming forward to us, and as far as the budget, I didn't understand why things were created and moved forward, and now we're stuck with that. So let's just go ahead and vote for it, and we will have discussion on that because I have many, many things to say why I have issues with this.
I'm going to use a little bit of executive privilege here, and before I go to Councilman Bullock, go ahead and give my opinion on this. So just my thoughts on this topic. I think if we're going to go ahead and postpone discussion on this ordinance, I think if the reason we're doing for that is that there's a member of this council that's not present, I think that's the wrong reason. I think we set a dangerous precedent there by saying that, and I really appreciate Mayor Ford's passion on this topic, but if we're going to say that each time someone's not here and they're passionate about the subject, that we're going to postpone the vote, I have an issue with that. I do think, though, and the challenge I do have with this ordinance in particular, is that we are codifying the method of collecting the fee. And in the ordinance, it states that we are putting that on a Adams County property tax bill. I know Mayor Ford was working to try to get the elected representatives of South Adams Water to come to the table to think about that monthly billing again, because I think that's a far preferable arrangement. And I don't know the status of that, and so that's why maybe I would favor postponing, just because I think Mayor Ford was working on that issue and working with the elected members of the South Adams Water Department to try to figure that situation out, which, from what I heard in our discussions, was preferable for this council, is that if you're going to institute a fee, that you institute a nominal fee that goes on people's water bill rather than on their property tax, where they're hit with a large amount halfway through their year, of the year on their property tax bill. So that's just my thoughts. Councilman Benson. Oh, I'm sorry, I jumped ahead of you. Would you like to go?
Yes.
Councilman Bullock, and then I'll go to you, Councilman Benson.
My objection was Mayor Ford isn't here. That is what I said. That is why I wanted to hold this back. Now, I'm going to speak on the fact that we do need to do some things that aren't beautiful around the city. And it's going to make me sound like an idiot because I'm going to talk out of both sides of my mouth when I'm saying we should hold up the vote for Mayor Ford, but in the other long term, there are things that need to get done in this city, and if we decide that everything we don't want to do doesn't get done, nothing will get done. My whole objection was Mayor Ford. I was not objecting on the fact of anything else. I said Mayor Ford should be here to comment on this ordinance. Now, if I was to comment on myself, it would be a totally different comment. But my objection, and the reason why I will vote no on this ordinance, is because I think that Mayor Ford should be here to comment on the first reading, and that's the only reason.
Councilman Benson.
Well, if we decide not to delay the vote based on the absence of one council member, that would be breaking precedent, because that precedent has been set many times in the past. In the 5 years I've been on council, it's probably happened 10 times. That is the precedent that we've had on this council, is that if somebody feels very strongly about an ordinance, that we have voted to continue it until a time that they could be there. So that is the precedent, not the other way around.
Councilwoman Carson.
Can you clear up for me, because I did read that, but I read the last line, which I believe states that we can't, it says it's under the billing for fee. So it's comma, then our other method as determined by the city council and allowed by law. So I read that as to this council can come up with any method of billing.
Yeah, you're correct. It allows for an alternative to either certify the billing to the county treasurer, or in the alternative, if the council so desires, and that would be part of your fee discussion, I assume, as to how it would be collected, you could arrange, if Mayor Ford has some or other arrangement with South Adams, that could be an acceptable.
So Mr. Marino's concerns are addressed in that last line?
Right, in subparagraph B.
Okay. And I'll just stop there.
Mayor Pro Tem Marino?
Mr. McBroom?
Just to chime in again about the schedule that we've set up. There was some discussion earlier about postponing first reading to allow the mayor an opportunity to comment. It is possible to have first reading on August 6th and still have second reading on August 20th with a fee discussion on August 13th. But I would only want to do that if council was inclined to proceed but just wanted the mayor to have an opportunity to comment. On the other hand, if a majority of council is really not comfortable proceeding in time to implement the fee for the 2013 calendar year, it wouldn't be worth the extra expense it would take to place it for first reading on August 6th and second reading on August 20th. So I wouldn't want council to simply postpone first reading if there really wasn't enough support to continue the discussion this year with an effort towards beginning to collect the fee in 2013, if that makes sense.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney?
Just two comments rather regarding the fee. I think, again, if there's discussions occurring relative to negotiating or getting consensus or support from the board of the water district to support a fee, collection of a fee, my take is that needs to be done at the behest of council and that be done working very closely with staff, as opposed to somebody acting independently in that capacity. Second, with regard to fee through the water bill or fee through the property tax bill, the upside to consider in terms of property tax collection is that, A, that's a write-off. Your property taxes are a tax deduction. It's not the case when you pay that fee through the water bill. Certainly, you're able to break it out differently if it's through the water bill, but I just think, again, those are specific discussions that would come up once we sit down and talk about that through the study session. But again, just those are my comments on that subject.
Mr. McBroom?
Just to follow up on Mr. McEldown's comment and the discussion about having the fee billed by the Water District. We have discussed the matter with Jim Jones, who's the general manager of the Water District. It's our understanding from Mr. Jones that the concept has been presented to the Water District Board of Directors, and they weren't interested in pursuing it. We're not aware of other discussions. It's not to say that those aren't occurring, but the last official word we got from the Water District was that they were not interested.
Thank you. That is all the comments from the council. I neglected earlier to open this ordinance, or I'm sorry, do we need a motion and a second first? We need a motion and a second to introduce it.
We have to get.
Because I'd like to open it up for audience comments as well. But first, we need a motion and a second. Okay. There's no motion on the floor yet.
I was making a motion to, I just made a comment. It wasn't a motion to hold it off. There's no motion.
Thank you. Okay. Councilman Benson?
Did Mr. Bullock make a motion?
No.
Jim seconded.
Jim said,
Well, are
Jim
you
said
going
he
to make the
seconded
motion?
the
'Cause
sentiments.
I'll second it if you want to make the motion.
It was not a motion.
I'll make the motion. I so move.
Is your motion to continue this
Yes.
ordinance to first reading to August the 6th?
Yes. That would be the motion.
Okay. Have a motion on the floor. Councilman Douglas.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to postpone ordinance 1896 to August, what was the date? 6th. Just a question for staff on that. We would still be on track if we wanted to take action on it by August 20th, by the deadline. What are the costs associated with postponing?
I would say it's several $100s versus $20 or $30. So there's an additional cost, but it's not out of the city's ability to pay that additional cost.
Okay. Thank you.
What would be required is we would simply publish the notice in the Denver Post instead of the Commerce City Sentinel.
Gotcha. Councilwoman Carson?
I want to be very clear here. This is nothing but establishing a utility, am I correct? So that it could die later in its future when this conversation is opened up and Mayor Ford is here. Is that correct? So, Mayor Ford, yes. Okay. And not to be disrespectful to the mayor's seat, but the mayor is an equal on this council. And I have been out of town for business and pleasure in the past and have missed items that were near and dear to me and that I was not able to speak on, items that I had heard from constituents on. But it's the nature of the beast. And so I do believe that Mayor Ford will more than have an opportunity to voice his opinion. And but I don't see the reason, if we're all unequal, that we do this. So
I do have a motion on the floor and a second to postpone ordinance 1896 to August 6th. Mr. McBroom.
I'm sorry, if you could give us a quick moment. I just want to make sure the information I provided about the cost difference is correct.
Okay.
Is there Laura, are you able to give a rough estimate of the difference in cost between publishing in the Sentinel and publishing in the Denver Post?
Councilman, while Laura's looking that up, Councilman Bullock?
On this vote, I would like to request a roll call vote for this vote also, the vote to...
The roll call vote has been requested on the motion to postpone Ordinance 1896. Mr. McBroom?
Prior to the vote, we believe it is correct. The difference in cost is several $100s. It's not thousands of dollars in difference.
Do you want to say that you disagree with that?
Is
Can
that-
I ask you a
is that
question,
helpful?
Bob? When you publish an ordinance, would they be publishing this whole ordinance in the paper?
No, we publish by title only.
Oh, by title only, okay.
Okay, the cost for the Sentinel is 44 cents per line.
Per word?
Denver Post is $3.10 per line. I don't know. I don't know if it prints like, I don't know if it's just when it goes to the printer, if it's going to be like this, because I don't have that space alignment, so I don't know.
However, if we're just publishing the title, it sounds like if we postpone it to August 6th to a special publication, the Denver Post, it's a couple $100.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's generally what it is. That's correct.
If there be no further questions for the staff, we will take a roll call vote on the motion to postpone Ordinance 1896 to August 6th. The vote is 5 aye, 3 nay. Carson, Teeter, McEldowney, nay. Motion passes. We will now move on to ordinances on second reading. The first ordinance, well, the only ordinance on second reading, is Ordinance 1880. I should actually explain also. Ordinance 1896, normally we would have taken public comment on that ordinance, but considering that we did decide to postpone, we will take public comment on the first reading on August 6th. So the public will have an opportunity to address the council on that issue. Ordinance 1880 on second reading. The city attorney would like to give council some instructions regarding this ordinance. Mr. Gaylor.
Okay, this ordinance comes before you on second reading after you continued it for a number of times. And since the continuance commenced, you have passed the oil and gas regulations that were the basis for the continuance. And so now that the oil and gas regulations are in full force and effect in the city, there's no purpose served by continuing this ordinance in effect or even dealing with it except to deny it. So in your packet, and I'll read it for the benefit of those who may not have it, is the recommendation is to defeat Ordinance 1880 on second reading because, and this is important to say, Ordinance 1891 regarding oil and gas regulations has been adopted and no amendments need to be made to that ordinance.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Gaylor.
Okay.
Does the council have questions of staff regarding this ordinance? Councilman McEldowney?
I was prepared to make a motion.
Okay. Councilman Bullock?
I was prepared to second the motion.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the council on ordinance 1880? Seeing none. Councilman McEldowney?
Then I would move in the manner as recommended by the city attorney, acknowledging that we would withdraw this ordinance given the passage of our
Defeat is the better word.
defeat rather this item given the passage of our recent amendment to the Land Development Code.
So in order, Councilman McEldowney, to do that, I believe we have to have a motion to approve and a second in order to have the motion on the floor. Is that correct, Mr. Gaylor? And then council members can vote on the motion?
Can I?
Because it's up for second reading already.
Can I move simply to vote?
The ordinance, or the motion be made to defeat the ordinance, then I would read it, just as always, and then you would vote on it, on the motion to defeat.
Rather than motion to approve, we simply move to defeat.
Motion to defeat it.
Okay. Councilman McEldowney, I'm open to that motion.
Then I would so move. To
Councilman
defeat.
Bullock?
And I'm going to second that, and I understand, but I want you to clarify again that we're voting to defeat this.
Right. So in this case, if you vote yes, it means you're voting down the ordinance. You don't normally,
Right.
as Mayor Pro Tem has indicated, don't normally vote on a negative motion, but in this case, I think that's the clear way of handling it, because then you're totally disposing of the ordinance. Otherwise, you got someone that's making a motion to adopt an ordinance that you probably don't want.
Okay. So I have a motion to defeat ordinance 1880. And I have a second. Again, a motion to defeat ordinance 1880. Roll call vote, please.
No, he has to read it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please read the title, Mr. Gaylor.
Sure.
Reads, an ordinance creating and declaring a 6-month moratorium on any land use, including surface or subsurface use, for the conduct of any oil and gas operations that include hydraulic fracturing or drilling activities within the city of Commerce City.
The title has been read. I have a motion to defeat ordinance 1880 and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Please let everybody understand this.
The record reflect that the vote is 8 aye. Ordinance 1880 is defeated unanimously. All right, we will move on to presentations. First on our presentations, we have a presentation regarding U.S. Highway 85 project environmental and linkage study. I'll ask staff to introduce this presentation and the presenters.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. I believe City Engineer Darren Sterling is going to introduce the folks from CDOT who are here to present.
Not on.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and City Council. Tonight's presentation will be on what's called a PEL study, which is Planning and Environmental Linkage. It'll be dealing with Highway 85 from I-76 north to a location just north of Nunn, Colorado, which is north of Greeley. And we've got a couple people from Region 4, which is northern Colorado, and Region 6, which is the metro area. So with that, I'll leave it up to Myron Hora to present to you. And then with him also is Lizzie Kemp and Gloria Highside.
First, let me say thanks to, for letting us come and present this to you. This is a study that's fairly important to Region 4, Region 6, CDOT in particular, and I believe you're going to see some benefits, and we're going to try to point out why we're trying to move ahead with this study and what we're trying to do, so we can get you a little bit of information and hopefully get your concurrence or your approval for us to move forward with this. why are we doing a study like this? One of the things, and it was interesting, I had stepped out, I came in and saw what the agenda had for us today, stepped out for a while and was coming back in, and was talking to the people from the Relay for Life out in the hall, and they asked me what I was doing, told them I was putting on a presentation about US 85. Basically, they said, well, we'll vote for it. We need to do something. I drive back and forth to Greeley every day. It's a lot of trouble. There's a lot of different bottlenecks, areas in there that we want to take care of. There's probably some safety issues. There are operational issues. And that's really why we're taking a look at this. Part of Governor Hickenlooper's way of running new government, he calls them the 3 E's. We added another one, but it's effective, efficient, elegant, and essential decision making. One of the things we found was as we were moving forward and doing improvements on US 85, and for those of you who've driven up and down 85, you've seen some of those. We've done some intersection improvements. We're doing some cable rail projects. And we're trying to improve the safety and the operations of that roadway. What we found was we wanted to make sure that we were making the right decisions. We started taking that low-hanging fruit, and we did all the low-hanging fruit. It was like, okay, what's the next project? What's the next project? How do we go about making this a viable highway for the future? So let's go ahead and take a look at this, and we wanted to go into this planning and environmental linkage study. How do we get more out of this existing system and make sure that we're prepared, like I said, for the future? We want to work with our planning partners, work with our local partners, which includes the municipalities along the way. We want to work with you so we understand where you're moving forward in the future with your land development, with other types of economic development, so that we're not chasing the tail. What we want to be able to do is get out ahead of the game if possible, so that we're not finding ourselves in a position where we have to come in and fix something. What we want to be able to do is try to work together so that the things are in place prior to that need. So what exactly is a planning and environmental linkage study? I don't know if any of you have ever gone through NEPA. It's a type of study we do for federal money. You've had to do them for some of your projects. It's a clearance process that we go through. What this does is it connects that NEPA environmental process to the planning side of things. So we can carry information forward as we're developing projects, developing plans, so we're not replicating effort. We're doing something once, we're making decisions, and we're carrying it forward into that next level. I'm going to go ahead and not read through this, but this is the next couple of slides, and we have copies for you, or you do have electronic copies also. This is kind of the practitioner, the NEPA practitioner definition of what a NEPA study is. It's fairly in-depth, but it goes about just like what I talked about, that it tries to combine all those efforts that we used to do within NEPA, combines what we do in our continuous comprehensive planning process, so we're moving both forward at the same time and providing that seamless, essential decision-making that minimizes, like I say, that duplication of effort, and it promotes the efficient and cost-effective solutions. Again, we're moving forward. We're trying to do those things that the governor wants us to do, that the transportation field is in CDOT, what we're trying to move forward with. And I think it's just good government practice in moving forward and not having to do things twice. So again, we talked about this, what exactly did all of that say on these previous slides? It basically gives us a study that we can move forward with. I call it NEPA Light. We've gone through all the process. We've done some of the environmental review. We've gone through some of the red flag review to make sure that we're not planning something that we're going to run up against later that's not going to be able to move forward. We're going to use this. We're going to do some alternatives analysis. We're going to try to pull this all down into a corridor-specific review of some more general transportation studies that have been done. US 85 runs through the DRCOG area coming from the south, goes through a piece of the Upper Front Range Transportation Planning Region, goes through some of the North Front Range MPO, the equivalent of the DRCOG area for that northern metropolitan area. And what we're trying to do is take this and run through all of those different studies and combine them and really take a look at what is happening on US 85. So in order to do that, we need to get you involved. We need to get your staff involved so we understand more of that corridor-specific information. For instance, we were in Fort Lupton talking about some different things, and US 85, like I said, I've been studying a bunch of different studies, including a study we did for for I-25. And it was on the fringes of I-25. We were looking at US 85 as how does that fit within that whole north-south transportation network. And when we went to Fort Lupton, they looked and said, did you guys know that we're bringing another 400 oil field jobs? Do you know that we're building this great big giant complex? They have noticed from oil field companies who are going in there and doing work in their area that wasn't accounted for. So what we really want to do is take a look and pull this down to that corridor level and get that information so that we can be proactive in our planning process, be proactive in our coordination, and get things done. And then what's in it for you? Gloria will cover some of this, but really what's in it for you is we're able to start building these things. We're starting to plan for these things, working in coordination and cooperation so that as development happens, as you see some economic benefits coming from the transportation network, as you see things going on, that we can be ahead of the game, like I said, and try to work together to move forward with this study. So what I want to go ahead and do is introduce Gloria Heiss-Eidler. She's our region access manager, permits manager, and she's been involved in this US 85 corridor since 1996, 1997, with a corridor access management plan that we did. She's had a lot of background on this. We've selected her to be our project manager for this study, and she'll go ahead and walk through some of the things that we're going to do with the study and how you can be involved.
Which button, Myron? I'm not, these are too technical for me, which probably isn't a good sign already. I was selected to be the project manager, and it was because of my familiarity with the corridor, and specifically the US 85 Access Control Plan, which was implemented in 1999, and which is the document that all of you are probably familiar with along the corridor. Part of it is obviously in Region 6, and part of it is in Region 4, but we work together on the way the corridor functions. So the environmental linkage study, what we're going to use it for primarily is some of the items are, we're going to look at operations and mobility, safety. Some of the goals that we'd like to see are, I'm sorry. We'd like to get together and to do a corridor plan. What is the final, what's the vision for this corridor? What does Commerce see from US 85? What does the town of Fort Lupton see? What does Platteville see? Trying to look at the purpose and the need, the mobility, safety, operations, and additional design detail. When we have been going through the corridor, working on projects, what we have found is that the access control plan assumes certain things. They assume that certain interchanges ought to be built, or that intersections ought to see some improvements. It assumed that some intersections would go to right-in, right-outs, or possibly be eliminated. And that was back in 1999, 98. So that things have changed, things that we weren't aware of, and we need to go back and we need to refresh that access control plan. Our goal is not to reopen that plan, but rather to look at the system as a whole to see if there are changes that need to be made. Are there economic developments that are being proposed that we didn't recognize clear back when? Did we anticipate interchanges where maybe we're not going to have money for a long time? Is there something we can do in the interim? It'll help us to identify red flags from the environmental standpoint. We'll be able to see if what we need to do for them down the future. The whole idea with the PEL is that it's a document that we'll be able to use later when we go to a full-blown NEPA, if that ever occurs. We don't expect a lot of impacts as far as the environmental, but we might, and we certainly are going to be prepared for them. We'll look at a total system analysis. We'll determine what needs to be done. Do we have other interchanges that we didn't recognize in the original access control plan that we need to go back? So long-range planning, we didn't, it would help certainly your planners. It would help CDOT if we knew what interchange footprints we might be looking at. Can we let development occur at a specific intersection without precluding the future it would allow in an interim condition some development to occur. Some of the communities, such as Greeley, recognize they have a specific interchange that they want some assistance with because it's just such a mess, and that hopefully with the PEL we'll be able to look at that. We noticed, too, that a lot of the corridor, as you all are aware, runs adjacent to the Union Pacific Railroad. That creates some problems when we go to try to fix some of these intersections because of the proximity of the railroad tracks to the intersection. So we want to be able to specifically look at how we might be able to fix some of those. It may be that we have to go to a more signalized intersections, which God forbid, since nobody likes those, but it helps us to identify what options we're looking at. It helps us to mitigate some of the problems that we might face in the future, allow development in an interim condition, maybe put parking. It will also give us an opportunity to see if we're getting enough right-of-way for the future of the corridor. Do we need to be protecting more right-of-way? It'll give us an overall picture of the entire corridor from a total perspective rather than just one region or one county. So it's been 13 years since we did the access control plan, and it's time for us to just revisit it. And that's what we hope to do with one of the many things we want to do. The project will have two parts. It'll have an executive oversight committee, and that will include the elected officials. It'll also include Regions 4, Region 6, Adams County, Weld County. All of the cities will have a representative, and FHWA will also be included, as will, we recognize now, obviously, that we need to have a railroad representative available for conversations, too. So we'll have the executive oversight, but the nitty-gritty will be done by our technical advisory group, which is the US 85 communities, their staff, the Adams County, and certainly CDOT specialty staff. I don't know if you are aware of the US 85 Coalition, which includes all of the municipalities along the corridor in Weld County. They will also have a representative at the table. The technical staff will be doing the technical work, but it'll always be presented back to the elected officials, and ultimately we will have several outreach meetings. We hope to have open houses along the corridor. We actually view the corridor in three parts. We think there's a southern, and we think there's a middle, and of course there's a northern. We want to do newsletters, electronic, and we'll have a website so that the public is well aware of what we are doing. It's important that we get buy-in from the municipalities as well as the community. So what's in it for me? Well, for local agency planning for your staff, it helps us with getting corridor consistency. We get interchange footprints that we can provide to developers so that they can plan their sites so that in the future we're not talking about taking their business or maybe we're allowing them to place parking in areas that we might use for a future interchange. It just gives us more information. It helps us to realign intersections that today are skewed. The number of skewed intersections along this corridor are amazing. Trying to correct them, we have found, is very difficult because of the railroad proximity, so that's an issue that we have. Spaghetti Junction that you see on the screen is specifically a Greeley interchange that we want to look at. We want to refresh the access control plan, which I've mentioned, and we intend, like I said, not to reopen it, but to look at the control plan as a whole and go through an amendment process of any of those areas in which we see that the change needs to occur. We also need to plan for economic development and growth opportunities. What can we allow along the corridor? And do we have the buy-in of all the municipalities? Some of the other things that we've been made aware of is the natural gas. Weld County has recently they're very active in the natural gas. There will be a couple stations along the corridor. We're looking at the transit stations that were identified in the EIS. We'll also be looking at possible park and rides, the energy impacts. The entire corridor has seen an increase of traffic, specifically truck traffic, which is amazing when you consider how much was out there before, but as a result of the oil and gas production. We also want to address the pedestrians and the bicycles. Today, you don't see much of that out there, but we certainly want to give that opportunity to the public, and we want to take that time to look at that. So what happens in the end? Well, we get the PEL. The PEL is a document that will sit and it'll provide us with information as we move forward, but it'll also allow us to do a NEPA document in the future if we need to do so. It'll provide us with the environmental data. It'll help us to have corridor consistency, and we can all plan and build for the future. And the thing that really is exciting for us is that it helps us to optimize and leverage future funds. We will have a corridor vision. The corridor would be able to ask for the money rather than just a specific municipality. It'll help us in that regard. So it's just smart. It's just very strategic. It's essential to our decision-making. It's something that all of the members of the US 85 corridor can look forward to utilizing in the future. So with that, we'd like to just get your feedback. We'd like to know what you're interested in. If you have specific areas you would like to bring to our attention along the corridor so that we can make it specific in our scope of work that we address.
Questions from the council. Councilman McEldowney?
Thanks very much for the update. Obviously an exciting corridor, and I'm going to venture to say that every community that has a piece of this highway running through it probably feels very similar to us, that it needs a little bit of work.
That's correct.
And certainly we have a couple prime sections that we would love to see some attention to, primarily here in the core of our city down at 60th and Highway 85, where we have an incredibly challenging intersection in close proximity to I-76. So I see some chuckles in the audience from folks who recognize obviously the challenges there, and we know that the costs to improve that to some ultimate state are exorbitant, to say the least. It's one of those corridors that in that area particularly bisects a key piece of our community and keeps effectively properties on the west side of that road sort of isolated as an island, and it doesn't allow us to, I think, develop fully the community that could exist in that part of town. And so we see a lot of density exist on the east side, but the businesses that are on that west side don't see the level of activity that they potentially could. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for additional growth that isn't going to happen until something happens at that intersection. And beyond that, it's safety. The roadway is in incredibly rough shape. You talked about the impact of truck traffic throughout the corridor, and certainly that is no stranger to truck traffic. And I think it was actually Mr. Bullock at a recent study session was talking about the current state of that road and effectively your car will drive itself in certain stretches along there.
That's for sure.
I think the other two pieces that you touched on that I'm intrigued by obviously are the ability to look at and really consider bicycle or multimodal transportation through that corridor. You've got a lot of people who are looking to bicycle, but you can't do it safely in many areas that include or cross Highway 85. I look at the 120th intersection in our city. I literally didn't know the topic was coming up. I have a picture on my phone. I was stopped at the light, stranded between the tracks and the light heading westbound on 120th about a week ago, and I have a picture of a woman on a bicycle at rush hour trying to figure out how she's going to get across to the RTD bus stop on the west side of Highway 85. So she lived, I can only assume, in the neighborhood just to the east there in Henderson, part of Commerce City, and is making her way through a very unsafe intersection to try and catch mass transit to, I assume, go to work or something. So I'm very keen on looking at how that is factored into the system as a sort of, not as an afterthought, but as a critical piece of that plan. And then I think the other piece that you touched on is the challenge throughout that corridor is the fact that it's shared with rail. And we know full well the cost of intersections that include rail.
Yes.
We've dealt with them all up and down Highway 2, and we have many more that we need to deal with in some ultimate sense, including hopefully grade separations. And I know ultimately that's the long-term plan for Highway 85 at 120th. But obviously the challenge of carrying those intersections to that sort of ideal state, the cost is just incredible. But without being able to achieve more of those grade separations throughout that corridor, you create significant barriers for movement, both the local traffic that needs to move effectively east-west maybe across that corridor, and then you've got the more transit and business traffic that needs to move unimpeded and doesn't want to contend with local traffic. So how do you allow all of that to sort of happen at once? So I think those are three key pieces to me, and they probably are very similar to the needs you might hear from other communities with that same the same highway coming through. So thank you again very much.
Thank you.
I may, Councilman, address the first comment about 60th and US 85. When we were talking about this project, we're going to start at I-76 and go up to Nunn. What we end up with is there's almost two different travel patterns there. I think you recognize that once you get onto I-76, you pick up all that additional traffic, all those additional travelers, and then that exit there onto 85 through Commerce City. It's a slightly different mix. It was outside of our study area. But Lizzie Kemp here from Region 6, we're doing this in partnership with them, has a little bit of information. Maybe she can talk to you just a little bit about that area.
Thank you, council members. Again, my name is Lizzie Kemp. I'm with Region 6, which is the southern portion of this corridor as it goes into the Denver metro area. And I think I guess just first of all to say that we are working in partnership so that you should see this as a seamless study across the boundaries of the CDOT regions. Also wanted to just mention that while it doesn't go this far south, there are efforts that we can, look at to try to put that into some of our planning work. The concern with the US 8520th interchange, I think, is that it's not yet in the fiscally constrained plan. So a study like this can help us to get to that next step of being competitive for getting into the fiscally constrained plan. So I think all of this work can work together to get you to that next step. Okay? Yeah, you bet.
Councilwoman Carson?
Any improvements you can do anywhere will be greatly appreciated. When I moved into the neighborhood that I'm in, the first thing that happened was my auto insurance went up. And I was told it's because I live on one of the most dangerous highways in the state. Since I have lived there, I can't tell you how many accidents that I have seen. It's a very unique highway that it has enormous amount of traffic. I have been up north to Fort Lupton to see that development, so I'm under the belief that the truck traffic is going to do nothing but increase. We've had our days with the front-end loader truck traffic. Now we'll go to this. It is ruining that highway. I can't tell you how many times a day I'm either going to make a left, a right, or cross the highway, because I live at 112th and Highway 85. The train causes enormous problems for that highway because the train will just come to a complete stop. There is not enough of a turn lane in either direction that when that train has come to a stop for that traffic to back up. So the traffic eventually ends up backing up down through lanes instead of in the actual turn lanes. Maybe we as the city need to start ticketing them, because I'm under the understanding they don't stop in Brighton anymore because they receive too many tickets. The RTD bus stop, I have witnessed what Mr. McEldowney has witnessed. There needs to be safe bus stops and a safe way to get to that bus stop. I don't know how you would do that on some of these, but I have actually witnessed RTD buses when we were under that construction there at 104th, and they were just pulling up, and honestly, people were getting out on a hill. And the liabilities there, let alone that somebody get injured because of that. So you have your work cut out for you, because I think the amount of residential traffic has picked up enormously. I do believe the truck traffic has picked up and is going to continue to increase. And the trains, none of us have any power over. So the other thing that I have seen is school buses crossing these intersections. And sometimes I hold my breath after I've seen videos that we've been shown by our police department of semis and such running red lights. So if anything you can do to increase that safety, whatever that is, that's the number one priority that I believe we should do. So, but thank you.
Certainly, CDOT agrees. Safety is our number one priority.
Councilman Douglas?
Yes, thank you for bringing this before us. I've been traveling up and down, up to Greeley for the last 8 years. I have 3 daughters, and one goes to college, UNC, and the other 2 just throughout certain activities, and I'll be going there this weekend as well. And I've seen a lot of near misses, especially on those country roads they cross. People just gun it and see if they can make it across. And there is a lot of activity for trucks, especially when you get to Fort Lupton. Is there any way that Highway 2 could be thrown in the mix as far as studying that as well? Because we get trucks that snake down through 85 to 76, link up to Highway 2, and they come all the way down Highway 2 going south and link back up to 85. And, we get truck traffic from that area as well, coming from the north down to the south.
This is one of those great planning questions.
So if I understand correctly, you're asking, is there some way we can divert some of that traffic off, or truck traffic off of State Highway 2?
No, if we could somehow increase the lanes, because it's single lanes, and the amount of traffic that goes through there, we have a combination of commuter traffic and then commercial traffic, especially big trucks, and there's trucks that travel through there. Everyone's trying to find ways to beat the traffic. And Highway 2 has been one of our big concerns because we have no control over that, since that's under the state. So that's greatly needed in our city. If that could be looked at as well, if you could pass that forward to the governor, because that's a dangerous road.
I can comment quickly on that, just that we did, between the regions, look at the travel patterns and decided that for this particular study, that I-76 was the appropriate limits of the study. But that doesn't mean that we're ignoring, as you go further in towards the metro area, what's happening on 85, on State Highway 2. It's just a different type of activity that we see, different type of travel. And so we're going to be looking at this area through just a different mechanism. But know that it won't be ignored, and I'll definitely bring your comments back. We're concerned about the trucks in particular around 60th as they approach a number of these highways.
All right. Well, this is a start, though. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman McEldowney?
I forgot to make one of my comments earlier, and you talked about the concerns with the increased traffic through the oil and gas activity in the northern part of the state. Funny enough, when I took the photograph of the woman at the bus stop, what caught my attention was the 2 massive tank vehicles, very distinct rigs, massive by comparison to your typical tractor-trailer rig, just flying. I mean, if they were doing the speed limit, I would have been amazed, because they were hauling. And we certainly have endless discussion here around the impact and the benefit of our truck traffic in the city. We're a huge hub to transportation industry, but we also acknowledge that the bigger the vehicle, the greater the wear and tear on the road. And I guess the concern or the question is, to what extent is that industry being looked at in terms of impact on road, and how do you recover or recoup some of that? I mean, certainly they're talking about their plans to expand. Are they also acknowledging that they are part of the added wear?
Well, I think that discussion is occurring at a very high level. It's not just certainly not at the region level, but we are aware of it. I mean, our dealings with the oil and gas in Weld County in particular, they tell us that the rigs that they're bringing in are some of the largest rigs that are made to do the work that they're doing. So, I mean, even the rigs that we're accustomed to seeing, we're going to see bigger ones.
Right. I know, certainly our community and our neighbor to the north, Brighton, are both home to players in that industry, and so, we're seeing those vehicles move through our community as a staging site and as they move out. So certainly, as that activity increases, which it certainly seems to be, just one added impact that, through this discussion certainly needs to be paid attention to, and I'm glad to hear that that's on your radar.
Well, and be assured that it is. I mean, it's certainly something that we in Region 4 are very aware of. I'm sure 6 is, as well as the wear and tear that they are doing on our roads. And how
Thank you very much.
Councilman Douglas?
I just have one more comment. I know in California, they impose a certain speed for rigs, and they can't go above that. If they go above that, it's an easy ticket for them. So if there's a way we could maybe slow the speed down on the big rigs. And I know on E470, those big rigs are allowed to travel on there without a charge to get where they need to go. So that might be another alternative.
Yeah, we've definitely talked about, just in talking about some of the things we want to look at in the study, should rigs be assigned to one specific lane? Should they be made to stay in the right lane? Those are just some of the things that the study will take a look at.
Okay. Thank you.
Just one comment. Where it's concerned, the I-76 North Corridor, we have, I think, some challenges with the Bell Creek and the Dunes neighborhoods. They're virtually islands because there's no really safe pedestrian crossing for them at either 104th or 112th. We have some fantastic trails and parks and a dog park on the east side of Highway 85, but there's no way really safe for those residents to access those amenities because of the lack of safe pedestrian crossings on Highway 85. The other issue, I think, on Highway 85 is just the very high speed at which you can travel on that road, and realizing that, you do have stop signs where I've observed multiple times that you're already traveling at a high speed. People feel that it's easier to just run the red light than it is to slam on the brakes in order to stop because they're already traveling at such a high speed. So I think that brings some challenges as well.
You're correct, and now too we'll address how the whole function of the corridor looks. Are we at too high of speeds, or what kind of modifications? So when I go back to do the scope of work, I will address some of these issues regarding pedestrians, the speeds, the things that you've mentioned tonight. The goal is to try to get this scope of work out as soon as possible. The plan is to do the study within 18 months. Myron, I'm going to put him on the spot and tell you a little bit about how this project is being funded, because I think it's impressive as to how we got to the point that we're at, and the collaboration that we have with not only the other municipalities, but certainly our partner in Region 6. So.
Yes, just to wrap it up, when we took a look at this project, like I said, we'd been doing a lot of different improvements along US 85 using our faster safety money. That's the car registration fees. So as we were going through and doing all these different intersections, we had some money programmed to continue doing that. And we wanted to make sure we're making the right decisions, doing the right intersections. So we went to the US 85 Coalition and started with them and said, look, we have $1 million programmed, ready to go ahead and move forward with all these different improvements. What we'd like to do is make sure we're doing the right improvements and take some of that money identified for the corridor, pull it back and do this PEL study. We got them on board, and in fact, they were so enthusiastic about it, they went to their councils, they went through their county governments, and they're starting to help fund this project. I think Adams County kicked in some money. We're looking at, I think one of our smallest little entities, clear up on the north end, showed up with a check for $100. What they're doing is just trying to show that they have some kind of buy-in to this, that we have a partnership, and they're all moving this forward. I don't believe Commerce City has gone to that step right now. And we can have that discussion, I believe maybe starting with Darren, to see if it's a possibility. I don't know where the council is. We wanted to get this in front of you, let you know that it was going on, put it on your plate so that you can give it a little bit of thought. Again, it's one of those things, we just want to show that we're all doing this together, that everybody has some skin in the game. It gets a little bit more buy-in, gets you a little more involved. But no, we do have the money. We've been working with other partners, and this study is going to go forward. But if you do see that you would like to participate, we sure do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, we have a presentation regarding the 2012 International Conference of Shopping Centers summary. I'll invite staff to come forward and make the presentation.
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno, Michelle Hill, and Julie Jacoby will be co-presenting tonight.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Tonight we're coming before you to give you an update of Economic Development Division's efforts in retail attraction, also to briefly talk about the importance of retail to the city and the economy, and then Julie Jacoby will give you an update specifically for the Retail Real Estate Convention that we attend each year and the results from this year's convention. I'd like to begin by talking about the importance of retail on our economy. Last week during the study session, you might recall that we talked about primary jobs, and those are the jobs that create a product or service that is then sold outside of the community and brings in new revenues to the city. Retail does not fall into that category. It's another type of service that provides services to the community. It meets the needs of the community, generates the sales tax revenues, jobs, and also helps to attract those other prospective businesses that are primary employers. However, it does play a very significant role in the city's economy because out of the $30 to $35 million in total sales and use tax revenues that the city receives each year, 20% of that is generated by the residential retail sales taxes. So it is a very significant portion of our economy. So to that end, we obviously want to focus very heavily on retail growth in the community. We do this through a couple of different ways. First of all, it is a part of the Economic Development Strategic Plan, and that is to decrease the amount of retail leakage from the community. Now, some of you have heard that term before. When we're talking about retail leakage, it's the amount of sales that are leaving our community. So it's sales that would normally be generated within a community if the residents living here and the people shopping here could get the services and goods they need within the community. When they can't, they have to go outside the community to obtain those. Now, obviously, grocery was a big leakage category for our community, especially in the northern range of the city where a lot of residents were driving outside the community. I think we've solved that one with the opening of the King Soopers Marketplace, so that will help significantly in that category. We also want to assist with the expansion of existing retailers in addition to attracting new retailers into the community. Some recent success stories there is La Casa del Rey. Many of you know that they are expanding. They will soon open their second location on Highway 2. In addition, they have a banquet facility. So that's an existing retailer who's growing in our community. A couple of the new attraction success stories, obviously King Soopers we mentioned, but also the Dollar General on Highway 2. That is another success story. The International Council of Shopping Centers is our most significant tool for retail attraction. The reason for that is it is the largest retail organization in the world, particularly in the country though, and it provides the opportunity for direct contact with a number of different retailers, brokers, and developers, providing us the most opportunities to continue building relationships and attract the retailers into the community. Also learn of new tools to help the existing retailers grow. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Julie Jacoby, and she'll give you an update of this year's real estate convention.
Good evening. ICSC, as Michelle mentioned, is the largest retail organization in the world. And with that comes the opportunity, by participating in that, to head out to their real estate convention, otherwise known as RECon, which turns out to be the largest retail convention in the world and boasts as many as 32,000 attendees just this year alone. And it's the best opportunity to get out there in front of the retail community and actually specifically target those who we still need within our own community. Oops. got used to working this. So the number one question that we typically get on the city end, and which was interesting for me coming to the city a year ago, is why do we go? Having come from the retail community, why we went was never a question, because it was a necessity in the business. So when people would ask that question to me here at the city, the first answer I could give them was very quick and easy, and that's to stay top of mind for those retailers. What a lot of people forget is that with many of these retailers, we're not just competing with the Denver metro area to get those retailers into our community. We're competing with the entire nation and the entire world in terms of where they're going to put their new facilities. If they're going to only open 10 to 20 stores in a year, they choose very carefully where those are going to be, and we're competing against thousands of them all across the world. So it's very important to build those relationships. Trust becomes one of the top factors in their decision-making process. The more they know us face-to-face, the more they trust us that we're going to actually do what we say we're going to do. And that also helps them make their decision-making much easier as they try to decide which community to enter into. The other reason to go out is the ability to actually target specific needs that we have for this community. King Soopers is an excellent example where in previous years the economic development team was targeting grocers to try to get them into the Northern Range. This is just one example, and we're still doing that today. And we'll talk about who we targeted this year in just a moment. So we sent 4 people out this year. Our conference team consisted of Mayor Ford, which was a wonderful blessing to have him along with us. It actually went over very, very well with the retail community. They loved the fact that the mayor was there talking about the community, and as you know, he's very passionate about the community, and that came through very clearly for the retailers. And he was able to share his history in the community with them as well. We also sent out our deputy city manager, Jim Hayes, who was extremely valuable, able to talk through the logistical aspects of coming into the community, as well as his intimate knowledge of the URA project, specifically the Mile High Greyhound Park. And then Michelle Hill, who's been representing the city for the last 6 years. It was an incredible blessing to have her historic knowledge there with us this year again as well. And this is actually my 9th year going to the convention, my first on behalf of Commerce City, but I come from the retail development background. So, but it was my first year switching hats, and it was a great experience to be out there with this very dynamic team. So when we talk about putting together the ICSC schedule, it actually begins a full 90 days prior to the trip, and there's a lot of work involved. The most important of which is us sitting down and determining what are the greatest needs we have in the community, what do we want to target, and then we're able to actually go in and look at the demographic research and the site criteria that is required by the retailers and start cross-referencing. What do we need and what retailers match our needs and our community demographics. There's a lot of work that actually goes into that process before we start scheduling meetings. This year, we were able to schedule 32 pre-scheduled meetings, which when you're talking about basically 2.5 to 3 days, it's a pretty intense schedule, quite honestly. These meetings are typically about 30 minutes long, and you're running from one end of the convention hall to the next. So sometimes it's a mile-long walk from one meeting to the next. But those 32 meetings, we focused on the following priorities: sit-down restaurants, hotels, development partners, potential development partners for the Greyhound track. We emphasized retailers that would be good for the URA projects, both Victory Crossing, the Mile High Greyhound Park, and also targeted some of those businesses that that are already in the city, potentially looking to expand or simply needed a visit from us while we were there. Taking a look further on, we put together this little chart. Sometimes it's easier to see things side by side so you can compare it to previous years. I think the most important slide, piece of information up here, it's not the 69 contacts we had. Those are wonderful. Some of those were walk-up meetings that we had, but it's actually the 32 pre-scheduled meetings. Again, these are 30-minute meetings, and this year, thanks to the economy that, believe it or not, is coming back, it's slow, but it's recovering, those meetings turned into very high quality in terms of their content because retailers were ready to start talking again, which is very reassuring for us. So those 32 meetings actually is the most important information on this page. We already talked about the quality of the meetings we had. Again, the overall atmosphere at the convention was very optimistic. And they are expanding, which was wonderful to hear. We had a slump here for the last few years because of the economy. Expansion is looming now again, but they're being very strategic in their decision-making, and they have to be. They're cautious, but they are making plans to expand 2012, 2013, and beyond. The other probably most important piece on this slide would be the follow-up meetings. Literally every meeting that we held out at the ICSC convention this year has resulted in some sort of follow-up meeting or contact. And that is a huge kudo for the city. We've been sitting on the cusp for many years here, but with the economy kind of dropping out, we got put on hold. People are ready to look at us again and start paying attention. So we've already had about half a dozen of these meetings come out already for their follow-ups or contact us for some additional information they required for their selection process. Some of the highlights we had coming out of it. Definitely the URA projects. Those are putting us on the map, and we find retailers actively interested in talking to us, more so because we have the URA projects. They present developers and retailers with opportunities that they can't get from just your standard retail deal when they can work directly with the city or with a URA who owns the land. So these are very high profile, and we got a lot of definite interest because of that. Another wonderful thing that we were able to go out with this year, and this is largely thanks to our communications team who did a fantastic job for us, they put together an interactive city map. This map was an incredible tool. You can see a little bit of it here. What it did is we were able to download this onto USB drives and open up a map of the city. All of those red areas are the primary retail development areas within the city. You can click on every single one of them, pull up all the information on that particular site, from the traffic counts to the demographics to the income levels to the broker information. And no matter which area of town we were talking about, all we had to do was leave behind this little USB for those brokers and those retailers. And that was a wonderful tool. In addition, we were able to download these maps onto our iPads. And we went out with our iPads this year, and rather than walking around with tons of paper, some of you who've been out there before know what that's like, huge binders full of flyers. This year we had everything we needed on our iPad, and we could very quickly and easily access all the information we needed no matter where we ended up talking about. So very valuable tool, and our communication staff really does deserve a huge pat on the back for that one. We talked a little bit about the URA projects getting a lot of attention. In particular, the Mile High Greyhound Park had a lot of buzz out at the convention. Pretty much anyone who knew where Commerce City was had heard of our project at the Greyhound Park. We went out with a couple different concepts to kind of toss around and feel out in terms of what they would respond to. We had one that was much more heavily retail focused, and then we had another one that kind of focused on a community college tech school possibility. We got some of this from the NAIOP Challenge and some residential. And what we found very interesting was every single meeting, this was the one they latched onto. It was the community college tech school concept. The reason that's important to us is because retail is going to be an important part of no matter where we go with it. There is a retail opportunity there, depending on what scale is where we have to determine. But as we now head into our feasibility process for the dog track, which begins sometime next month, it's a concept we can test the feasibility of and find out whether or not it's actually economically doable for the city. Okay, so some of what we learned while we were out there, to sum all this up. Overall, the retail outlook was very optimistic. They are expanding, but again, very strategic in their expansion plans. They're looking at the numbers closely, and we've got to do what we can to inch our way up on their lists. Incentives are still very important to them. It's not something that will make them come to our community if they wouldn't have otherwise, but what it would do is potentially fill the gap or close the deal for them. It could be that little piece that puts them over the top is basically what we're hearing. Move us up from a number 15 spot to a number 5, if the incentives are right. Overall, when we talk about retail development, we're pretty much talking about the new build from the ground up type of retail development. Pre-leasing levels today need to hit 70 to 80% before anyone will even break ground. This is dramatically different. When I was working in the shopping center industry, if we had 2 anchors and 40% pre-leased, we broke ground, and the rest of it would come. Today, it needs to be 70 to 80%, or no one will even touch the ground. It's a much more challenging thing to do, so they're having to wait much longer to get the deals done. Additionally, developers need to put in 40% now of the loan to value. And to put this in perspective, all you have to do is think about 10 years ago when you were buying a house, you put $10 or 10% on your down payment, finance the other 90%, and you had your house. The developers are now being told they have to put in 40%, and we're talking $2 to $5 million projects. So you can imagine the amount of cash that has to be on hand for any of these guys to actually start work. So that's why you'll see the new build retail development still slow. It's coming back, but getting financing is still very, very tough. Additionally, most of the firms are talking about building in 2013 or 2014. So they're seeing the recovery enough that they're willing to start planning for potential builds starting next year. We had a very sort of lean and mean team with just 4 of us this year, but it worked out very well, actually. Turned out to be a really good size to head out there with, and it was a very highly efficient team. Preparation pays off. The nice thing is we have a reputation for not wasting a retailer's time. We've done our research. We know that they're a true potential retailer for our community. We know our demographics match, and that reputation is serving us well. The scheduled meetings, the most important part of it, walking up and trying to get meetings, you're not going to get the quality. The 30-minute meetings are reserved for those that are scheduled, and by pre-scheduling them, it takes a lot of time to do it. It's worth every minute of it. And those interactive materials, priceless in terms of their value. So the really good news is that Commerce City is known to be open for business. We literally had a developer use that phrase with us. He told us when we were out there that it used to be that they'd find out he was doing a deal in Commerce City and they'd say, why? Why are you in Commerce City? Now today they say, yeah, I know why. I know why you're there. So we've gone through quite a long process as a city, but the cooperation and the partnership between the city manager's office, the council, the community development team, economic development, everybody working together, the word is getting out, and it's paying off for us in terms of our reputation. We are on the cusp for many retailers. The reason why we are on the cusp has to do with the growth of the city, the positive vibes that are coming from the city. However, the reason that we're on the cusp and not over the cusp, some of the things that come to the forefront tend to be daytime employment on the upper side of town. We also, the population base, they do have very strict requirements in terms of the number of rooftops that have to be in a certain area within 1, 3, and 5 miles. So those are a couple of things that hold us up. But the URA opportunities, they are helping us inch further up people's lists and getting us a lot of attention. And people want to do deals right now with city-owned or URA-owned land. It's a big deal for the retailers. So with that, are there any questions that we can answer for you?
Thank you, Ms. Jacoby and Ms. Hill. Questions from the council, Councilman McEldowney.
First off, thank you to you and to Michelle. Great presentation. Thank you very much for the depth of detail and the additional commentary. I think it's really helpful. One of the things that I really found valuable in my 2 trips out to ICSC were the comments, those firsthand comments where the unsolicited feedback, or as you're closing a meeting, somebody leans over and says, "Hey, I just want you to know, you know, we worked with your planning department on such and such, and that was exceptional. And to be able to get those comments, you can tell because you're face to face that they're genuine. They're not putting on. And I think those are things that all too often our community doesn't necessarily hear about. And so I appreciate you bringing that forward. I think, you know, I think people would be pleasantly surprised with the perceptions out there, to your point, that have evolved or continue to evolve. And it's great to hear that that was, again, the case for you this year. You know, that daytime population piece was obviously the story on my 2 trips out there. I think it's, you know, it's that piece that when I talk to citizens about why we don't have something going on, it's, hey, you know, if somebody opens a restaurant, who's going to be sitting in there having lunch every day? You know, you've got to have that daytime population. And so it's, you know, that to me is, you know, we may want to go out and stock retail, but we really need to figure out how to drive more of that daytime employment and that office space, if you will, or other industry that's going to bring people in during the day, and retail's going to come. And so either way, hats off to you guys. Thank you for all you're doing, and very much appreciate it.
Councilwoman Carson?
Thank you for the presentation. I think everyone that went did a great job, and the work you did ahead seems to be like a tremendous amount of work. The one thing that I see in here that looks different to me than what the team has done in the past, and I could be wrong, is this being able to focus on the actual area of interest. Instead of presenting us as presenting us as a whole city, but then targeting exactly that spot that they're looking at. I think that is just key. So I don't know, it's just, it all looks great. So thank you all.
Councilman Douglas.
Thank you for your presentation. I was waiting to hear what you guys had to say from your meeting, and it sounds like everything went well. The word out is, well, I talked to a lot of people up north there, and a lot of them would like more healthier choices when it comes to eating. And so if we could go that avenue, it would be great to have a few places that are healthy choice. We have a lot of fast food restaurants coming in, which is great because people like those choices. Fast-paced world we live in, but most people would really like to have a more healthy choice as far as restaurants. Thank you.
That's it from the council. Thank you for your presentation. Next on the agenda is administrative council business. There are a couple of topics that I believe city management wanted to raise. I'll defer to Mr. McBroom.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. I actually have a bit of a list here, so if you'll indulge me while I go through the list. The first and perhaps the most important, we distributed to council prior to the meeting in hard copy a letter that sort of a loose consortium of Adams County communities would like to send to DIA with respect to some discussions that have been occurring about Airport City. Because it's not going out officially yet, it's probably best if there's not a tremendous amount of discussion at the meeting tonight, but we wanted to get council's consent to have the mayor sign the letter, along with the intended staff, the mayor from Brighton, the mayor from Aurora, and the 3 county commissioners sign the letter and then send it to Denver Mayor Hancock. So if council were so inclined, a motion to that effect would be very helpful tonight to authorize the mayor to sign the letter.
I will entertain a motion to authorize Mayor Ford to sign the letter. Councilman McEldowney.
So moved.
Councilman Bullock.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to allow Mayor Ford to sign the letter to Mayor Hancock. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you, sir. The next item we have is we do now have a need for an executive session prior to the August 6th council meeting. So if City Council would be so kind as we would need a motion to start the meeting at 5:30 instead of 6:30 on August 6th.
I'll entertain a motion to begin the regular meeting of August 6th at 5:30. Councilman McEldowney?
So moved.
Councilman Bullock?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to begin the meeting of August 6th at 5:30. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item I have, Mayor Ford, prior to leaving town, had asked us to inquire about the possibility of the city purchasing a foursome for the Stephen Vinsel annual golf tournament. It's a foundation that was set up by the Vinsel family after Stephen passed away of cancer in 2009. It's a foundation golf tournament that raises money annually for the Cancer Center of Thornton. The event is on August 4th. There is money budgeted in the city council budget for miscellaneous golf tournaments, but it seemed appropriate to have council approve that, and then we'll continue to search for folks who are available to play on that day. The cost of the event is $280.
I will entertain a motion to authorize the expenditure of $280 for the Vinsel Golf Tournament. Councilman Bullock.
So move.
Councilman Teeter.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to authorize the expenditure for the Vinsel Golf Tournament foursome. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item I have, I've received two separate requests from council members to reserve soccer tickets for particular soccer games, to make the 20 tickets from the city's suite available for two separate groups. One, and these would be for the two games in August. There are home games on August 4th and August 18th. The proposal was to make 20 tickets from one game available to one of two Commerce City Boy Scout troops. That was a request that Mayor Ford received. The other is to make 20 tickets for one of those two games available to the city's Housing Authority for their annual event. The Housing Authority has held an event at a soccer game the last few years, but was having difficulty making arrangements with Dick's Sporting Goods Park for their event this year, and so they've inquired as to whether or not the city's suite might be available. But we thought it was appropriate to bring that request forward to council and see if council had any objections. So the idea would be to make the tickets for one game available to the Boy Scout troop, the tickets for the other game available to the Housing Authority.
I'll entertain a motion for the to allow city staff to contribute the tickets for the two Rapids games in question to the Housing Authority and to the Commerce City Boy Scout troop. Councilman Bullock.
So move.
Councilman Teeter. Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Thank you, sir. The last item on my list is a follow-up discussion to see if City Council would like to take any action regarding the Denver Black property.
On this topic, Councilman Benson?
No, I had another topic.
Different?
What
Okay.
was your statement?
This is the point during administrative council business when I think it would be appropriate for council to decide if they would like to take any action regarding the Denver Black property.
Oh, right, okay. I have no objection to that.
You guys don't want me to make the motion?
Request, is there any discussion from the council before a formal motion is made? Councilman McEldowney?
I think it would be, and I'll ask council to keep me honest, to convey that the Cultural Council, or the Cultural Council, I'm sorry, the Historical Society is an incredibly important entity within our community and has developed very quickly into a real force for good in the community. With that said, based on a number of factors that have been presented to council for analysis, my personal take is that this is unfortunately not the right opportunity at the right time for us to support, but I think that the city's continued support for helping develop the strategic plan of the Historical Society and exploring other properties and options for development of a facility would make better sense. And with that, I would suggest that the council no longer continue the exploration into purchasing the properties in question.
Okay. Councilwoman Carson.
This has been a very tough thing for this council, and I'm sitting here and I'm watching your faces. I want you to know, and I know I speak for every council member up here, that we have nothing but the highest respect for every one of you that serve on this. The hard work and the passion that you have put into it, believe me, nobody out here does not know what you have done. I know that I had voted no the first time, only because I just believe that your energy has succeeded the plan, and we need a plan. I think you're on the right track of historic preservation, that is something that is in your hearts to go do. Please don't think that this council does not support you by the actions that, when I vote no, it does not mean that I'm not supporting you. I do support you, and I do respect all the work that you have done. So that was the only comment that I felt the need to say tonight.
Further discussion from council? Just one item from myself. We had a lot of discussion on this topic, and it's with a lot of heartache because we have some amazing citizens that are on the Historical Society, and what you have managed to do in the very short time that the Historical Society was founded is nothing short of phenomenal. I don't want you to think at all that I'm the biggest supporter of this council and this city continuing our partnership with the Historical Society, and maybe this isn't the right opportunity for the city at this point, but I believe that there is one in the future, in the very near future, in fact. And I want to continue that open dialogue and that partnership with the Historical Society so that we can make sure that we find the right opportunity for both parties and that we fulfill your dream of opening a museum, of preserving some of the historical properties in this city, because I think it's an extremely noble proposition. And you have nothing but my full support in continuing this partnership and continuing to work together. Anything else from the council? Councilman Douglas.
Yes, I agree with Dominic saying, and this is weighing heavily on our hearts, and don't feel ashamed of not coming forward. I will that this didn't go forward as you guys had intended, but I think there's more opportunities down the road, and I think we need to help you prepare so when something like this comes up, we can make better decisions and have a better outcome. So looking forward to working with you guys and setting things up that you guys are going to benefit. So thank you.
Councilman McEldowney.
Just a question for staff. Do we need to make this decision in the form of a motion?
That was my clarifying question. It sounded as if Mr. McEldowney had made a motion, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I think all but officially making it a motion. So I would so move that we.
Can you clarify that?
Yeah, I would so move that the city cease further progress on purchasing the black properties.
I have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? Councilman Teeter.
I'll second that.
I have a motion and a second to discontinue city action on the black property. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.
No.
Motion passes. Vote of 7 aye, 1 nay, nay being Councilman Bullock. Anything further, Mr. McBroom?
No, sir, not under administrative council business.
Thank you. Councilman McEldowney?
I think Mr. Benson was up for another one before I insert myself.
Yes. Councilman Benson.
Yes, this is something that I've sent emails about, and we've had discussions at the council about before, and that is the the lighting on Tower Road north of Pena Boulevard. I think I've made the comment that it's dark as the inside of a cave. Somebody's going to get killed out there, and I'm wondering if that's what we're waiting on to do something about it. You know, we're coming up with our budget discussions. I would just like to see, and I know the council has come up with some numbers in the past, I would like to see those maybe restated, brought up to date, so that we would know exactly how much it would cost to put some lights out there. Because there is no light between, except for the stoplights between Pena Boulevard and 96th Avenue.
Mr. McBroom, do you want to respond to Mr. Councilman Benson's request and maybe go over some of the information that's included in your report?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. I certainly understand Councilman Benson's comment. There had been some council discussion about the prospect of installing streetlights on Tower Road a couple of years back. Public Works had collected just some very preliminary estimates to see if council wanted to continue that discussion. The estimates at the time, and they're in the city manager's report tonight, we've resurrected Public Works memo from 2010. Those very rough estimates in 2010 were somewhere between $450,000 and about $1 million. Council, I think, could have a budget discussion based on those rough estimates. If council would like more detailed estimates, it might be good for council to take formal action to direct us to do that, because that would probably take more than an hour or two of time to do. But at council's direction, we'd be happy to do that, and I think we could probably have some better numbers in time for the budget. The other option is to simply use these 2010 numbers to have that initial budget discussion to see if it's something you'd like to consider further as part of the 2013 budget.
Thank you, Mr. McBroom. Councilman Bullock?
Yeah, in the 2010 numbers that's in the report tonight, Mr. Clemens, these lights here would be all underground. The lighting would be all done underground, just like Highway 2?
Councilman Bullock, the first option, the 435, I think was the number that was in there, is for wooden poles with Cobra heads, standard. Those are probably overhead. The second option, the 900 and whatever it was, is for the ones like Highway 2 that would be underground.
And I just want to bring this out for the citizens. These lights are non-salvageable. So if the road would get improved and widened and they take the lights down, they would have to reinstall a different lighting system, because the lights they take down, they would not be able to use again, correct?
In both cases, yes.
Okay, and I just want people to realize that those costs, the one $435,000, and these are $2010, $435 for one, and basically $998 for another, and this is $998,000. Those would be dollars that basically you would be losing, because we know in the future we're going to improve Tower Road. Now, right now, that isn't doing any good, and when Mr. Benson mentions the fact that somebody might get killed, you know, he brings this really close to home, because Mr. Benson had an accident on Tower Road just this last weekend. And so, what cost is safety? And so this is something this council is going to have to wrestle with and make a decision with right now, not tonight, but right now for this 2013 budget. So, so the citizens know it's out there, it's definitely going to be something that we as a council are going to deal with in the budget discussion.
Councilman McEldowney?
I just want to ask a clarifying point, because if I remember when we did Highway 2, which it was essentially wrapped up just before Mr. Benson and I came on council, I thought my understanding was that the poles used on Highway 2, and my understanding is that in option 2 of your numbers here, the same sort of city standard light pole would be used. Would those not be reusable if the road was widened? The only difference would be that the undergrounding and the cement caisson where those are mounted, to my understanding, would be salvaged or lost, but the poles themselves would be salvaged, correct?
I would guess that there'd be some salvage, but very little after any real use over any period of time. 5 years would probably be the use value of those poles.
So the key is, depending on how, and this really becomes part of the business case for this entire decision, right? If we're going to light that roadway for a period of something up to 5 years, then it makes sense. If it's going to be lit for somewhere under 5 years because you're going to ultimately replace that roadway, there's a whole different business case there. I guess we need to, those are the things that we have to look at in terms of long-term fiscal planning, and whether or not we establish a new GID or otherwise to help fund that corridor. Those are all things that would come into play. But I think Mr. Benson's example, and any of us that have family or neighbors that transit that corridor regularly, certainly in the winter months, the early morning commutes are as rough as the late day commute. So again, I think this is going to be good discussion for the budget. And again, looking at those rough 2010 numbers, you're talking between $500,000 and $1 million roughly in yesterday's dollars. As with every capital project or significant investment, those costs only increase every year we put that decision off. And so again, to comments I made earlier in the evening, at some point you can't just cut. You have to figure out how you're going to fund this stuff. And where we've got roadways that we want to expand or light poles that we want to put up, we're going to have to do some hard thinking about how we do that. So thank you for the update, sir.
Just to add, the Highway 2 project was about $1 million. So,
and that's a longer stretch, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yes, slightly.
But it was also done in 2000, late 6, early 7, correct?
No.
You're better. It seems like it's before that, but I wouldn't be able to give you a date.
It was when I did my deck, because that's how I met Scott Jaquith.
So you'd have
and I
some
remember
perspective.
that because I moved in January of 05, so it was sometime in around 06 is my recollection. But I guess that's a great point, right? I mean, we're talking about 6 years of appreciation. Yep.
Councilman Douglas?
Yes, Greg, the cost of the poles, for each pole, I know what the bulk of the cost is, but what's the cost for each pole? in
I don't
each
have that
scenario?
information. They would be separated. I forget we'd have to provide more information on that
Okay.
to give you the.
And
better
as
answer
far
to
as
that.
the length of the poles, are they 20 feet, 15 feet, 10 feet?
The height?
Yeah, the height
Would be
of
very
poles.
comparable to those on Highway 2.
Okay. And the other, have you guys looked at solar lights? Because I know those have improved a lot, and you need like at least 5 hours of sunlight, and you get at least 12 illumination.
We have not investigated that recently. We could look at that, provide an answer to that.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Benson?
Yes, as I think Mr. Bullock and Mr. McEldowney mentioned, when we might be widening Tower Road is a big factor. There's no doubt that we are going to do that. It's just a matter of how soon that's going to happen, and that ought to be something that would factor in to this decision. We need to get some input about a projection about when we're actually going to be able to do that, because obviously we don't want to spend a lot of money if we're going to be doing that within the next 3 or 4 years, but if it's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8 years down the road, I think it's worthwhile to put in some sort of at least minimal lighting. Some lighting is better than no lighting.
I do agree with Councilman McEldowney that I think this is a very appropriate discussion for the budget. when we have those talks. And Mr. McBroom, is this something that's in the capital improvement pipeline?
It had not previously been identified as a priority, but as part of the 2013 budget presentation, I think August 13th is the date that we're providing an initial presentation of the CIP projects that are planned for 2013, and that would be an opportunity for City Council to add additional projects. The challenge, as has been discussed, will be how to fund it.
Right. I think it's an appropriate discussion for the budget. Councilman McEldowney?
This was on a subsequent subject.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, Mr. Benson, are you okay with including this as part of the budget discussions?
Yes, that we direct the staff to prepare an up-to-date presentation, taking into account when we might be widening Tower Road realistically, and that be made part of our budget discussion this year.
Is a motion needed from the council on that?
I don't think so. I get the impression from Mr. Clements we can provide some updated estimates. It won't be a bid, but it'll be an updated budget estimate.
Great. And in conjunction with Councilman Douglas's point about solar, if we could also look into, I know LED lighting on street lights has also proven to have significant energy cost savings, so if we could look at that as well.
Certainly.
Would you like a motion, Mr. Gaylor?
This is just a direction. I think for the sake of the minutes, to make it clear,
Okay. Councilman McEldowney?
I would move that staff be directed to prepare an updated estimate of cost to light the tower corridor, including alternative technologies to those included in the 2010 report.
Councilman Benson?
Well, I thought I had moved for that, but I would second this motion. And with regard to LED lighting, certainly LED uses a lot less electricity than almost any other form of lighting, but people, and we see these at our NLC exhibits, people selling LED lights, but I've been told that they're more for lighting of parking lots than for roadways. I don't understand why they'd be appropriate for one and not the other. Do you have any ideas about that?
Mr. Benson, would you mind if we save that for when they come back with the report? Is that okay?
Sure. But I just thought that Greg Clements might have some comment on that.
I'll tell you after
because
the
they
meeting.
certainly use
Councilman
a lot
Bullock
less.
will have an answer for you after the meeting, he says.
You're going to have the answer. All right.
I have a motion and a second to direct staff to research an updated proposal for lighting tower. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Councilman McEldowney.
And this is one I would bring up in partnership with Mr. Benson. On Wednesday at the DRCOG meeting, there'll be a discussion item around an additional $40 million in federal funds that are being discussed in effort to program those dollars over the 2013 through 2015 year. Commerce City is one of the cities with a project in that list, and for us, it's one that has been discussed many times over the last several years. It's not a new roadway, it's not a bridge, it's not a grade separation, but it is a mass transit effort to bring RTD service from the Northern Range into downtown Denver Central Business District. It is not the largest project on the list by any stand, but it does come in at just under $500,000. On Wednesday, it's not an action that night, but it is a public hearing for testimony from supporters of these different initiatives to help lend obviously support and help the board make a decision ultimately. I don't know if we would have time to get staff to prepare a letter of support as we've done in the past on projects to help speak to the need and benefit for this effort. But with council support, I would think it would be appropriate to put that forward if we haven't already. I didn't see anything in the DRCOG packet as of yet.
With council action tonight to direct us to prepare that letter and with an authorization for the mayor to sign, even though he's out of town, we can work with him to get his signature on the letter before Wednesday.
Okay, then I would move to direct staff to prepare a letter in support of the RTD/Commerce City RTD route.
And authorize the mayor to sign.
And authorize signature on the mayor's behalf.
Second, Councilman Teeter.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to request that staff prepare a letter in support of the RTD Commerce City proposal and for the mayor to sign. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes.
One last comment on that to any of the community members, and Mr. Sarin, I know you've been a big proponent of this effort. The public comment should begin fairly early in the meeting at the DRCOG offices, so much like our citizen communication, anyone can appear and speak in support of an effort. Given the position on the agenda, I would expect that it would reach the public comment section at about 6:15. Wouldn't you think so, Jim? For typically for that first major agenda item.
1:15 what?
6 p.m. for the public comment on that item Wednesday night.
Isn't the meeting starting at 6:30 though?
Or is it 6:30? I apologize. You're absolutely right.
I mean,
actually, wait a minute. Is it?
Mayor Pro Tem Moreno.
The agenda's out, but I haven't.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It is at 6:30. I had 6 in my head. So yeah, probably 6:45 or so for public comment.
Sure.
We have a draft DRCOG agenda that indicates the public hearing will start at 6:45.
The one on the DRCOG website and from staff shows 6:30. Call to order.
But public comment began.
Oh, I got you. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was my estimate. It was 6:45. Yep. Sorry for the confusion, but thank you.
Okay. Further administrative council business? Councilman Douglas.
Yes. Brian, is there any way that we could have some information as far as, I know I put out there before, just our structure of our city prior to moving over here from 2007 from the old building to the new building, as far as departments and jobs that were created since 2007 in 2012?
I know we have that information. It might be, because of the time it might require to pull that together, it might be best if that were a council motion. I don't know that we could have that all put together in time for the budget discussions over the next few weeks. We are planning to have department heads make presentations to council during the month of August of budget requests for 2013 that would include the current structure of those departments and number of personnel. To do the analysis from 2007, we certainly have the information. It'll just take us some time to pull it together.
Think that could be done by August 27th?
I think it could. I think so. Because of the time required, it probably would be best if that were a council motion, though.
Is there a way you can get council motion to have staff put that together?
Can I ask why? I mean,
I just wanted to know as far as structure of the city, because there's some things that I'd like to look at. I want everybody to have the same information. I mean, if you don't want the information and you just want me to get it, if that's okay, then that's fine. But I'm just want to make sure I look at everything going forward here. I think everybody should.
I can understand that, but you're saying from 2007 to now, which is a 5-year period, and to spend staff time and staff hours pulling together that kind of information, I'm trying to wrap my head around what is the real purpose and what's the significance. I mean, I can understand you saying you look at everything, but why would we as council want to put the staff through that kind of brain damage to put that together if that's something that you just want to look at? I mean, that should be just, in the past when we've had requests like that, if it didn't seem or deem necessary, that was something that council dropped. And I mean, this would definitely have to be a council decision, or I don't want to even tell you what the alternative is. But to me, it seems like to me, I'm going to say a wild goose chase, and I'm wondering why.
Let me rephrase it. 2007 and in 2012, the difference as far as how our city was structured. Forget the in-between, 2007 and 2012.
I would think that would be fairly easy for us to gather. I think traditionally in the budget book every year, we include numbers of full-time employees and organizational charts by department.
Okay.
So we'd be happy to pull that together for you.
All right. Does that sound better, Mr. Bullock?
Councilman Bullock?
And I also should say, I don't think that'll take more than an hour, so council approval, I don't think would be necessary.
Right, that's going to take, for that organizational chart from that time to that time, it's a less than an hour's worth of work, so it doesn't require council approval.
So your modified request, Councilman Douglas, is the organizational chart from the year 2007 and a current updated organizational chart.
Correct.
Okay. Councilwoman Carson, did you have anything on this topic?
I was just a little curious, as the 07, I guess there's a comparison that you're wanting. I would fully support, especially an updated organizational chart. I think that's something that council probably should look at every year, every other year or something, is the organizational chart, and a detailed one, so that it's clear to understand. Sometimes I don't understand things if they're not in detail. And I guess if it's not a lot of work to do the 07, then I don't have a problem with that. Mr. Douglas, do you need the chart, or are you just wanting to see the growth pattern? And so if there was a percentage in those departments, would that be sufficient or not?
Yeah, I like to see hard facts, and it makes things helpful going forward with the budget.
So what you're asking us to approve is 2007 and 2012 organizational charts?
Yes.
Okay.
Councilman McEldowney?
When I'm looking for data to try and support a business decision, I typically try and figure out what question I'm trying to answer, and then I work with people that are expert around that data to get the right data to help make the decision. And I'm trying to understand what an org chart from 2007 and an org chart from 2012 are going to do to help make a decision around budget, because independent of other data, I don't know that I get what function that's going to help with. And so I guess, just starting with the 2007 piece, are you looking for pre-Jerry Flannery or post-Jerry Flannery organization? Are you looking for just heads by organization? I mean, let's get down to what you need so that when we have staff go off and put this together, you actually get what you're looking for. I think Ms. Carson raises a great point, which is if we're going to look at organizational data in the context of a budget discussion, then do you also have information on population growth in those same years and general fund revenues and expenditures in those same years, so that you can correlate to that staffing level, the increases in the community, and how that staff aligns against capital projects and otherwise? I mean, I think it's very dangerous when you ask for things in a very general way without getting the necessary context or detail, because then it leads people to make incorrect assumptions around what that data means. And so in the spirit of having a really effective and really productive budget discussion, if there's a question or a problem that we're trying to solve, I think it's important to put it out there so that we can all weigh in. And it may be a great thing that this council really would find value in, and therefore it would make sense to allocate staff time. But I'm just genuinely trying to help make sure that if staff goes and spends an hour and gives you 2 org charts, that's really going to help get to where you're trying to get. Does that make sense?
Councilman Douglas?
I think an hour is not going to hurt staff. what I'm trying to get at is, this is my first time, of course, taking the seat, and I want to make sure, going forward, the budget, I have information. And as far as information goes, 2007 is when our economy stopped. And as far as population, it varied a few thousand, but not that much. We haven't had that much growth, as far as population. So that's why I'm using the 2007 data versus 2012. That's going to help me get through as far as the budget and where we're at, where we've been. And I do have other, I've asked Roger for other budget years and everything, and I'm trying to put things together, put things in perspective so I can understand.
If I may, I think a lot of the context that you're looking for, if that's the case, is actually present in each of Roger's final budget decks, which speak to population estimates and typically include a chart that correlates population growth to the budget to other areas of expense, including staff. So, again, those are certainly helpful to have that in hand, and so I don't know if you've gone to the extent of asking Roger to provide those past documents. I know that I try and keep those handy and reference those in advance of the budget, so.
Councilwoman Carson?
On a couple things. Mr. Douglas, if there really is something that you're needing, I would actually speak up now so that you get the answers that you're looking for. If you're just looking for comparisons, because I too would like to see comparisons in many places. I know the budget, I would like to always see a 5-year comparison when I open that up, because that's easy for me to read then when I can see the 5 years. I can just walk down through that comparison chart. When I open up 1 year, it doesn't mean a whole lot to me if I don't have something to compare it with. So as Mr. McEldowney stated, is if there is something specific you're looking at, or if you're just trying to move us in the direction that we start doing things so that new members to council, it's much easier for them to get an understanding, because there is a comparison there. There's that 5 years, because that is what you've pulled up now is 5 years. I fully understand that. The other piece that I do understand is, and this is just to give you an understanding, because I'm not sure that you understand that we have employees out here, and when these topics come up, it puts an uneasiness in employees, because they start to wonder, is this council then looking at cutting jobs? And so that's why I said I would be very clear as to what it is that you're looking for, or the direction that you're going, so that our employees, when they come to work every day and do their job, they don't feel that job is being looked at and is in jeopardy.
Mr. McBroom?
Just to clarify, Mr. Douglas mentioned he was seeking information from Mr. Tinklenberg. I know that you had requested copies of budget books, which we provided last fall from 2007 to current. Incidentally, that's where we'll get the information that you're seeking, the organizational charts from those 2 years. I wanted to make sure I didn't misunderstand. Is there additional information besides the org charts that you've requested that you're still?
No, it's just,
okay.
It's just the structure as far as 2007 and then what it is right now. Because I have the other ones, and that's all I'm asking. I mean, I don't think I'm trying to go anywhere with this. I mean, this is my job. I mean, being on council, and that is to absorb this and I have to go back and I have to go forward. I have to look at long range, where our city, where we want to go, just like we talked about passing budget, the storm drain fee and everything. I have to take everything in consideration. If I don't, then I'm not doing my job. And that's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get the information and make some good decisions here, because this is not easy. I mean, I don't want to just go along with everyone else. I mean, we're each one vote here. We each go about our days and everything, and we also had to have this in mind as well. And so I'm not sure why, when I ask for certain things, it kind of raises the hairs on folks and gets them to think, what is he doing here? I'm doing my job, and I'm asking the staff to help me out here, and that's all. I'm not going after anybody. When it comes to the budget, this is the local level. We're looking at things at the national level that has an impact on what we have here. And I look at our city, the size of residents we have, 45, 47,000, whatever the number is right now, based on the surrounding cities and how we're functioning and making sure we can either improve in certain areas or some areas that we need to do things different. So that's why I wanted to have that information so I can plug these things in and see how that's going to fit.
Councilman Douglas's modified request was for an organizational chart in 2007 and a current organizational chart based on Mr. McBruin's estimate that can be completed underneath an hour. That does not require council approval. So this matter doesn't warrant further discussion. If there's anything else, Councilman Benson.
That was exactly what I was going to say. Thank you.
Glad we're on the same page, Mr. Benson. Any more administrative council business? Seeing none, we'll move to reports. Mr. McBroom.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Moreno. As has been my custom over the last few meetings, I'd like to briefly summarize information that's in the city manager's report that was sent out prior to this evening's meeting. The first item, council members may have received some phone calls or may still receive some phone calls. Burlington Northern Railroad had problems with their crossing gates on Friday afternoon. The police department received a number of calls. We provided some information in the report. It's my understanding that Burlington Northern is taking steps to make the necessary repairs to those crossings. In short, for about an hour and a half, the crossings were dropping, but then not raising when a train wasn't present and was backing up traffic. So we've been in contact with folks at Burlington Northern, and it sounds as if they're working to make the necessary corrections. Secondly, some folks in Reunion were without power over the weekend. Ms. Rhyme Cordero got in touch with United Power today. United Power provided a letter explaining the nature of the power outage and what they're doing to correct it, and that's attached to tonight's city manager's report. We provided an update on the work that has just begun along York Street and Brighton Boulevard. It's related to Suncor's new office building that's under construction at the corner. Although there's going to be some fairly significant construction in that area, Suncor is expecting to maintain traffic along Brighton Boulevard. There's a contact number there for Alicia Burnett at Suncor. Should you have residents contact you that are experiencing problems as a result of that road work. Mr. Douglas had asked us to see if we can have a Shea Homes sign relocated so it's out of the public right-of-way. Shea Homes was gracious enough to do that. There is some additional work that we're looking to do to further improve sight distance at the southeast corner of Chambers Road and 112th Avenue. Mayor Ford had been in contact with some folks that operate the wildlife sanctuary to the north of us in Weld County. We've got some information there. We've set up some preset tours for council members who would like to tour that sanctuary up in Weld County. So if you would like to attend, please give Lisa Gallegos a call so we can get you scheduled. As we've discussed, we included some information from 2010 regarding lighting costs on Tower Road. We will proceed based on council's direction tonight. We have a brief update from Acting Chief Saunier about a success story regarding the city's fairly new bike patrol unit. During a routine bike patrol on July 8th, officers Bellamy and Ranshaw made contact with the manager of Fast Cash Pawn Shop and learned of a hunting bow which had been pawned at the store. The item in question had been the subject of a criminal trespass complaint on July 3rd. Thanks to the connection with the pawn shop, the officers were able to retrieve the stolen property, obtain suspect information, and arrest the individuals responsible. The investigation further revealed additional information that led to the retrieval of other stolen items. So we're always happy to hear about those positive stories. The next item, Councilman McEldowney, there had been discussion at a prior council meeting at something that would equate to a Shop Local campaign. We provided some information that indicates we want to be careful about encouraging residents or people outside Commerce City to shop in Commerce City. So there might be a problem with that, but I know there's also discussion that night with doing a better job of promoting to Commerce City residents the benefits of shopping locally. So I think there are some things we can do to let our own citizens know that there are tremendous benefits to shopping locally. So we will pursue along that avenue. Councilman Douglas had inquired about the ability of providing additional discounts to high school students that are on either the Adams 14 or the Prairie View High School golf teams. We provided some information in the packet, in the report. We provide free golf to those school golf teams currently, including practice time, so we've included an estimate of that cost. And as part of the Parks and Recreation budget presentation on the Golf Enterprise Fund, we'll present some information about the costs of providing those additional benefits to high school students. Mayor Ford had inquired about a golf tournament that the Commerce City Rotary Club would like to have at Buffalo Run Golf Course, had expressed some concern about relative costs of having a tournament at Buffalo Run versus other area golf courses, and we provided what we believe are some accurate comparisons of those costs that still shows Buffalo Run is very competitive, less expensive than some surrounding golf courses. We are going to reach out to the Rotary Club again and see if we can't address their issues and encourage them to have their tournament at Buffalo Run. So that is the city manager's report for this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Gaylor?
Any item I had was already covered by the agenda. The only thing to tell you is that I will be out of town next Monday night. So I'm wondering if you're going to have the meeting or... No. Deputy City Attorney Karen Stevens will be sitting in for me next Monday night.
Bob,
Yes.
don't you have anything to tell us about any cases that we've had in the recent past?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming that you all got the email that Karen Stevens provided, that the city was involved with a jury trial, 12 jurors, federal court, and the result of the verdict, after almost a record-setting time, the jury was out for probably an hour or so, came back with a jury verdict in favor of the city. For the benefit of you who may not recall what case I'm talking about, as well as the citizens that may be watching, this was a case where a police officer was called to a residence as a result of a disturbance at the residence, and then it was a hang-up call, but we still investigate those types of situations because the hang-up may be due to a forced hang-up of the telephone. So our police officers went out there, and the police officer then was confronted with some dogs. Then one of them was in the process of attacking her, and she had to shoot the dog for protection purposes, and the jury found that she was acting appropriately when she shot the dog for protection. The city was sued along with the police officer for the loss of the property, namely the dog being a property right. But in those kinds of cases, even if there's a $1 award in favor of the plaintiff, the city would be stuck for all the attorney's fees. And that was part of the pitch to the jury, that, look, it's not the money, this is the argument of the plaintiff's attorney, it's not the money, we want to show that Commerce City did something wrong here. If you just award us $1, that's all it would take to show that. Well, awarding them $1 would have meant we would have had to incur probably a close to $200,000 legal fee. So, but as it turned out, the jury awarded nothing, and the case was then dismissed. So it was a good job on behalf of the city by Sursa and by Karen in my office.
Thank you for the update, Mr.
Thanks
Gaylor.
for reminding me of that.
Councilman McEldowney.
Mr. Gaylor's word about being out of the office next week brought to mind, I have had a last-minute business trip that I need to be out of office for, so I will not be at the study session next Monday, with council's permission.
May I have a motion to excuse Councilman McEldowney from next week's meeting? Councilman Bullock.
Move to excuse Councilman McAdonney from next week's study session.
Thank you. Councilman Douglas.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to excuse Councilman McEldowney from next week's study session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. Have a good business trip. Councilwoman Carson.
I just wanted to remind everybody that this Thursday will be the second concert for the Music in the Park series provided by Cultural Council. I'm sorry I don't have the flyer with me to tell you which bands are playing, Miss Elliott. Do you have that information? Pioneer Park at 6 o'clock last Thursday was a wonderful band, a wonderful turnout. Dancing was taking place in the park. It was a fun night had by all. So I encourage everyone to come out, and if you have that information.
Stud Mushroom and Elmer Funk, 6 p.m. Thursday.
So as you can see, it will be a good time.
Thank you,
Please
Councilman.
come out and show your support for Cultural Council.
Thank you, Councilwoman Carson. Councilman Bullock.
No report. I had my light on for no apparent reason.
Councilman Douglas.
No report.
Councilman Teeter.
A couple weeks ago, the Triple Crown Girls Softball Fast Pitch Tournament was held here in Commerce City in our Pioneer Park. It was also held at Aurora and Westminster. I did manage to get over and watch about 5 games, and I did wear my city shirt every time I went over there. And everybody in the stands that recognized that I was a Commerce City council person wanted to comment on how well the tournament was ran over there and how beautiful the park was. They compared it to the other 2 cities that they were in holding this tournament over the weekend, which ran all week long, and was nothing but high praise for the staff and crew for the clear the fields. I'd like to pass that along.
Thank you, Councilman Teeter. Just a brief update. Last week, council members went and kicked off the renovations to the senior center at the Commerce City Recreation Center. Those new improvements will be really nice and overdue. Very much a loungy, relaxed feel, so seniors can come in and out, use the senior center at any time that they want, as well as like a little like food eat-in bar area, which will be great too. It's nice to see that, the seniors had brought up some concerns about the layout of the senior center, and we were able to leverage some dollars, both grant dollars and city dollars, to address some of their needs. That was nice to see. Like Councilwoman Carson said, it was a wonderful turnout for the Cultural Council Music in the Park. Join us for this Thursday for the concert then. And then lastly, I thought Mr. Councilman Benson would regale us with his tale of the weekend, but Mr. Benson, we are very, very glad that you are okay.
Yes.
And this council is very, very fortunate to have you as a member, and we're glad that you are safe and well And you could have taken the night off, but I'm glad you're here.
It looks a lot worse than it is.
Anything further? Councilman Douglas.
Just wanted to say thanks to Ed Perlmutter for coming out to the Commerce City Business Professional Association. Met over at the Wildlife Refuge, and it was a good amount of people showed up based on having a meeting in July right after the 4th of July. So thank you very much, Ed, for coming out.
Thank you. And last item, there is a birthday this week. Councilman Renee Bullock is having a birthday, so make sure that you wish him a happy birthday this week. If there's no other further business to come before this council, don't go anywhere. We have a URA board meeting immediately following. We're adjourned.
I just need a moment, sir.
URA board meeting. Give me 30 seconds. I'll look at it. Jim. You got a meeting still.
About asking people to sing, but then I thought.
Makes you a little nervous. I'll bet so. They peel the door. Sure.
Yep.
I don't have that ordinance, so
I am. We can begin, sir. Mr. Moreno, we can begin.
I think he was turning around, I heard. That's what I heard, he was turning around. But you can't do that if you're in front. Yeah. As longer than the road is.
That was a long truck. I tell you, I was about that far from because of that.
Would have come through there and got that windshield down.
Had gone through the window instead of hitting the pillar that holds the windshield up. That thing would have gotten me right here.
Oh, yeah. You're exactly right.
But that pillar, the windshield pillar, probably saved my life.
And taking the shot to the head, too. The main thing you had to worry about was your brain swelling or not.
You know, I did take a shot because this was all the way down to the bone, but there's no problem with the bone.
Sure. Make it quick. We'll just take a 5-minute recess while council members get organized for the URA meeting.
While we're doing that, I'm going to have to sign some stuff.
You're on the clock, Jim.
Yeah, we can be out of here.
We're ready. He's going to go use the restroom.
I couldn't wait.
I'd like that.
Well, hurry up. You'll beat Jim.
Yeah, he's lucky that tow truck
Mm-hmm.
high enough to come right to that.
Well, it's that big old car he was driving that protected him too. But he said his airbags didn't deploy because he didn't hit it head on. I wonder what got him here.
I think it was he hit the windshield or the dash or something. Maybe the string.
He said he couldn't. He said it couldn't be the steering wheel. He said that's covered in leather. And I thought, I don't know. I don't know what else you'd have hit unless he had something in his visor that came out, slid out, and gouged his
Looked to
head.
me like he had something pretty solid.
Yeah.
He said he was cut, they said he was cut through the bone.
And then he's on that blood thinner, so he
Yeah,
blood
that's
like
good.
damn near blood to death.
Yeah, I'm on blood thinners too. I bleed pretty good.
Yeah. So, what day? Let's see, today's Monday, so Friday. You get a call from the neighbor. I was home in the morning. So I don't know, it's about 9:45 or something, and she works in Erie at the post office. And she had called my cell phone and said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "All I got was go to the house. The ambulance is coming for bed." So I was going to ask you, where does that ambulance come from? That's the, it was north.
Okay, yeah, but
So I
it came
assume
out
that's
of
who
one.
we have a
Right.
contract with?
It come out of one of our firehouses. Now, depending on where they were sitting that day. Could have been at, where was it, where were they supposed to go?
113th in Peoria.
That could have came out of Station 8, Peoria, come out of that, could have came out of that one on 112th. And Highway 85, if they were in that
I don't
house. See,
think
I
they
don't
were.
know
I
what
think it
house
took
they
too
were in.
long. So do
Okay,
they
so
have
if they didn't
manned
come out-
places for Northland
Yeah,
ambulance?
yeah. There's one at Station 2.
Rick thought it was 104th and like a down and maybe.
I think there's one at 104th, where our Station 5 training center's at. That's probably where they were at. So they do move once in a while. But there's one at Station 2, which is up here off of Holly and 56th. There's one at Station 3, which is 72nd and Montgomery, in that house too. And I think they're in Station 5, which is right there by the old UM Woods.
That's where he
104th.
thought they came
Yeah,
from.
that's
Yeah.
where they come from, yeah.
And then, do you guys do the contract with them? So, this is what really concerns me. She was coming from Erie, her daughter was coming from South Aurora, and he was coming from...
Call the URA meeting of July 16th, 2012 to order. Madam Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Ford. Moreno.
Here.
Benson. Carson.
Present.
Teeter.
Here.
Bullock.
Here.
McEldowney. Elliott. Present. Douglas.
Present.
Sir, you have a quorum.
Thank you. There is one set of minutes for approval this evening. They are the minutes of July 2nd, 2012. Before approving the minutes, I'll ask for a motion to allow Councilwoman or Board Member Carson to abstain from voting on the minutes because of her excused absence. Councilman Douglas. Move to excuse. Move to excuse.
I move to excuse Councilman, Board Member Carson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman McEldowney.
I didn't know that.
Have a motion and a second to excuse Board Member Carson from voting on the meeting minutes of July 2nd. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes. I will now entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of July 2nd, 2012. Councilman McEldowney.
Move to approve the minutes of
Board member.
Board Member McEldowney, thank you. Board Member Bullock.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the meeting minutes of July 2nd. All those in favor say aye.
Wait,
Aye.
I don't think I've seen these minutes. They weren't in the packet that I got.
Mine
They were
were.
in the packet.
Mine
They
were.
were in the URA packet.
Yeah, they were separate.
See, I don't have my iPad tonight.
I'll give you this minute.
So I think there was a vote. I voted.
Mr.
Did you want to reflect
Mr.
that as a
Moreno?
no vote, Councilman, or Board Member Benson, or maybe an abstain?
Well, there was a vote on spending another, I think, $2.5 million for the demolition and cleanup of the dog track property, and I voted no on that. I just want to make sure that the minutes reflect
okay.
that, so.
They do.
Okay,
They
good.
do.
Okay.
That's it? then I'm good.
All right, Board Member Benson is in affirmative of the minutes. Motion passes unanimously. We have one resolution on the agenda tonight. That's URS 2012-03. Does the council have any questions regarding this resolution? Board Member Benson, is that from before?
Right.
Okay. Board Member McEldowney? No question. Okay. I will accept a motion to approve the resolution 2012-03. I would move to approve URA 2012-03. Board Member Bullock?
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve URA Resolution 2012-03. All those in favor say aye.
Title?
Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
Title reads, Resolution Approving Intergovernmental Agreement with the City of Commerce City and South Adams County Water and Sanitation District.
The title's been read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion passes unanimously. That is all we have. URA Board meeting is adjourned. Yeah, we did. 6 minutes.